Kim Soleum lived a life consumed by a singular passion, the expansive world of darkness exploration records. He devoted countless hours and significant funds to this beloved franchise, eagerly collecting merchandise, immersing himself in its chilling ghost stories, and meticulously uncovering every detail of its intricate lore. This obsession defined his every waking moment. What started as a modest online platform popular mainly among students had unexpectedly exploded into a massive viral sensation. Its captivating content, shared across various social media channels, particularly YouTube, quickly garnered millions of views and an ever-growing dedicated fanbase, drawing more and more people into its mysterious world. The core of Darkness Exploration Records lay in its detailed accounts of expeditions into various paranormal phenomena. These eerie occurrences and supernatural entities were collectively known within the franchise as the Darkness, a term that evoked both fear and fascination among its followers, including our guy, Soleum. Soleum spent his days hunched over his computer, his fingers flying across the keyboard, typing furiously as he delved deeper into the game's intricate narratives. He meticulously documented every piece of information, every chilling encounter, and every cryptic clue, completely lost in the digital realm of the darkness. His unwavering dedication eventually led him to a real-world event, the Explorers of the Darkness exhibition. This grand gathering celebrated the very franchise that held him captive, bringing its virtual mysteries to life. He walked through the bustling halls, a deep sense of anticipation swelling within him. At the exhibition, Soleum found himself surrounded by fellow enthusiasts, all equally captivated by the world of the darkness. He made his way through the various stalls, his eyes scanning for new treasures to add to his collection, the vibrant energy of the crowd buzzing around him. He approached a merchandise booth, his basket already overflowing. With a focused intensity, he reached for more items, his purchases piling up. The sheer volume of his acquisitions quickly drew the attention of other attendees, who watched him with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. A woman nearby, observing his extensive haul, whispered to her companion, wondering aloud if he might be a scalper. Her voice carried, hinting at the common frustrations of fans struggling to obtain limited edition items from resellers, an accusation that Soleum heard clearly. Soleum paused, looking up from his purchases. He met the woman's gaze with a steady, unyielding expression, his hood shadowing his face. He simply stated that everything he was buying was for his own personal collection, a quiet declaration of his deep, unshakable devotion. With his basket now brimming with newly acquired treasures, Soleum turned and walked away from the merchandise booth. His steps were firm, his mind already drifting back into the immersive world of the darkness, eager to integrate his latest finds into his cherished collection. His exploration of the exhibition culminated at an interactive game booth. The vibrant screen displayed the title, Prophecy of the Apocalypse, Darkness Exploration Records. It was a game directly tied to the franchise he adored, promising a new layer of immersion and challenge. Soleum stepped up to the console, his heart thrumming with excitement. He began to play, fully absorbed in the digital challenge before him. The game's mechanics and lore were intimately familiar, allowing him to navigate its complexities with practiced ease and strategic thinking. To his genuine surprise and elation, Soleum achieved the highest score. A bright, triumphant fanfare erupted, signaling his victory. He had not only played the game but had excelled, earning the coveted first-place prize, a significant achievement for any dedicated fan. His reward was a sleek, official-looking ID card. It bore the logo of Daydream Inc. and identified him as a member of the field exploration team. Soleum stared at the card, the words resonating with a strange familiarity from his extensive knowledge of the franchise. Daydream Inc. was a name he knew well from the game's lore, a powerful pharmaceutical company, fabled to possess the ability to create anything imaginable. Its reputation within the fictional world was immense, but the mention of the field exploration team sent a shiver down his spine. For within the narratives of Darkness Exploration Records, the field exploration team held a grim reputation. It was tragically known as the Suicide Squad, a moniker that hinted at the perilous and often fatal nature of its missions, a detail Soleum knew all too well. Suddenly, Soleum found himself sitting in a large auditorium, surrounded by other new recruits. A cheerful speaker stood on stage, addressing the crowd. "You are the chosen successful candidates," the speaker declared, his voice booming with congratulations, welcoming them all. The speaker then proudly announced their assignment, the Field Exploration Team. The words hung in the air, a stark contrast to the celebratory atmosphere. Soleum's mind raced, struggling to reconcile the real-world announcement with the dark implications he understood. A wave of dread washed over him. He knew the field exploration team was notorious in the game's lore for its brutal trials. It was a department designed to filter out full-time employees by forcing them into a deadly survival game, starting right from their orientation. His heart pounded with a desperate urgency. He needed to escape, to get out of this place before it was too late. The cheerful facade of the orientation now felt like a sinister trap, slowly closing in around him, threatening to consume him entirely. However, a flicker of memory surfaced, a small detail he had overlooked in his panic. There was a short probation period before official employment began. This thought offered a sliver of hope, a potential window for him to somehow extricate himself from the impending danger. The speaker continued, his voice echoing through the auditorium. He stressed the importance of active participation for everyone to be properly evaluated. "It's imperative that everyone must actively participate, right?" he asked, his smile unwavering, his eyes sweeping across the room. "All freeloaders will be caught," the speaker declared, his tone shifting slightly, a subtle hint of menace underlying his cheerful words. The implication was clear. There would be no passive observers, only active participants in whatever grim evaluation awaited them. Without warning, the lights in the auditorium abruptly flickered and then died, plunging the room into complete darkness. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd as the heavy doors at the entrance sealed shut with an ominous thud, trapping everyone inside. Confused murmurs spread through the darkened room. "Why did the doors close earlier?" someone whispered. Another suggested, "A blackout?" "Shh, I think they're going to show us a new presentation." The attendees remained largely calm, unaware of the true gravity of the situation. Then a low, guttural rumbling began, a strange noise that vibrated through the floor and up into Soleum's seat. It steadily grew louder, transforming from a distant thrum into a powerful, unmistakable sound, one that sent a chill down his spine. The noise intensified, the rhythmic clatter and roar now sounding undeniably like a massive train accelerating through a tunnel. The vibrations grew stronger, shaking the very foundations of the room, leaving no doubt about the nature of the strange phenomenon enveloping them. A disembodied voice, calm and mechanical, resonated through the speakers. "Passengers, thank you for using the Abyss Transit Authority today," it began, its words sending a fresh wave of unease through the trapped audience, though few yet grasped their full implication. "Our train will not be stopping," the voice continued, its pronouncement chilling Soleum to his core. It then calmly instructed them to listen closely to the announcements for a comfortable journey to their final destination, a phrase that now sounded utterly terrifying. Soleum sat frozen, the reality of the situation slowly sinking in. His dopamine-deprived life, once filled with the escapism of games and lore, had now, ironically, led him directly into a real-life horror scenario, one far more terrifying than any fictional narrative. He clutched the Daydream Inc. ID card in his hand, its presence a tangible link to the nightmare unfolding. The speaker's voice, now eerily calm and detached, cut through the tension. "Do you like it?" he asked Soleum directly, his eyes fixed on him. The speaker's gaze lingered, an unsettling smile playing on his lips. "You'll cherish it, right?" he pressed, his words a strange mix of expectation and subtle threat. Soleum, still reeling from the announcement, could only manage a choked, whispered response. "Yes," Soleum managed to respond, his voice barely audible, a desperate attempt to comply, to perhaps buy himself time or avoid drawing further attention. He felt a profound sense of helplessness, trapped in a situation he had only ever read about. But then, a jarring, distorted voice, filled with an otherworldly static, overlaid the speaker's words, echoing directly into Soleum's mind. It uttered a single, chilling word, a stark contradiction to his forced affirmation: liar. The sound sent a jolt of terror through him. Horrific, pixelated text flashed before his eyes, glitching and flickering with sinister intent. It painted a gruesome picture of what awaited them. Your bone is to be crushed and grinded, choking, suffocating, scared, killed, tortured, murdered. The words were a stark, terrifying prophecy. Then, the words, "Wake up," repeated, hammering into his mind, jolting him back to the oppressive reality of the orientation room. Soleum was drenched in cold sweat, his face pale and his eyes wide with unadulterated terror, the nightmare now undeniably real. He looked up to see the speaker still smiling brightly on stage, the cheerful, new E-employee orientation banner glowing behind him, utterly oblivious to Soleum's inner torment. Soleum finally understood. He had to go to work, even if it meant stepping directly into a living ghost story. A new chapter was about to begin for Kim Soleum, a recent graduate hoping for a fresh start. He had just been hired by Daydream Inc., a company famed for its miraculous medicines. Like many others, he believed it was a place where dreams truly became reality, a beacon of hope in a competitive world. He had heard whispers of Daydream Inc.'s incredible success, especially in hair loss medication, which was rumored to grow hair unbelievably fast. People spoke of it with awe, calling it a miracle cure that had taken Korea by storm. Others knew Daydream Inc. as a cosmetics-focused pharmaceutical company. They specialized in skin disease treatments, creating medicines that worked instantly, no matter how severe the ailment. It truly seemed like a place of wonders, a beacon of health. With a flourish, the company's vibrant marketing even claimed they provided all the medicine anyone could ever need. They proudly declared themselves a magic company, one that truly made magical medicines for everyone. This promise drew many. Their logo, a simple yet striking emblem, promised a future filled with innovation and care. It was a brand that inspired trust and excitement in all who saw it, a symbol of their incredible achievements. Soleum felt this hope. Kim Soleum, along with other hopefuls, had been invited to their orientation. The atmosphere buzzed with nervous energy and eager anticipation. Everyone was ready to embark on a new journey with such a prestigious firm, a path towards success. Then, a charismatic speaker stepped onto the stage, microphone in hand, a wide, unsettling smile on his face. He looked out at the crowd, his eyes gleaming with an unknown intent, ready to deliver his speech and reveal their fate. He began his address, his voice booming through the hall, echoing with an almost theatrical flair. The new recruit sat in silence, hanging on his every word, unaware of the true nature of their welcome. A strange tension grew. "You are the chosen successful candidates," he declared, his voice filled with an unnerving cheerfulness. The words hung in the air, a mix of congratulation and something far more ominous, a subtle chill that went unnoticed. Daydream Inc. was indeed a familiar name to all of them, a company everyone recognized for its groundbreaking work. The recruits had all heard the stories, the incredible feats of its pharmaceutical prowess, its reach across the globe. It was hailed as the magical pharmaceutical company, one that could reportedly make anything imaginable, a true pioneer in its field. This reputation had drawn countless hopefuls to its doors, promising a bright future. The speaker continued, his smile never faltering, as he revealed the next step for the new hires. He held a sleek, black device, its surface glowing faintly, almost invitingly, in his hands, a symbol of power. "Among the new recruits," he announced, "we have invited only a special few to this place." The room stirred with murmurs, a mix of pride and curiosity about what this special invitation entailed, a unique opportunity. "Congratulations," he exclaimed, his voice sharp and clear, cutting through the rising whispers. The recruits braced themselves, eager to hear which departments they had been assigned to, their futures hanging in the balance. "You have all been assigned to the field exploration team." The words landed with a strange weight, a name that didn't quite fit the image of a pharmaceutical company. Confusion rippled through the audience, a collective gasp. The field exploration team was part of Daydream Inc.'s development department. Records of dark exploration mentioned it as a massive faction, but there was a darker, more chilling rumor associated with it, a hidden truth. It was tragically known as the Suicide Squad, a team infamous for its extreme risks and high attrition rate. A cold shiver ran through some of the recruits as they processed this unsettling information, a sense of dread. "The field exploration team?" one recruit whispered, his face pale with dawning horror. He had never heard of such a department in a company like this, and a sense of unease began to spread through the room. Another recruit echoed the sentiment, admitting she hadn't heard of it either. The initial excitement in the room quickly evaporated, replaced by growing apprehension and bewildered glances, a collective realization of danger. "Does a pharmaceutical company even have a team like that?" A third recruit wondered aloud, his voice laced with disbelief. The reality of their situation was beginning to sink in for many, a terrifying shift. This department was so unhinged, it reputedly weeded out full-time employees by throwing them into a death survival test on the very first day of orientation. The air grew heavy with a grim understanding, a chilling premonition. Kim Soleum felt a surge of panic. He needed to get out of there, a primal instinct screaming at him to flee. This was not the magical company he had envisioned. This was something far more sinister, a deadly trap. However, the speaker continued, oblivious to the rising fear. "Before your formal employment, there will be a short probation period." His voice remained unnervingly cheerful, a stark contrast to the mood, a cruel joke. This probation, he explained, would serve as an absolute evaluation of their practical aptitude alone. The recruits exchanged worried glances, sensing the true meaning behind his words, an unspoken threat hanging in the air. Of course, he added, for each individual's evaluation to be conducted properly, everyone's full participation is essential. His eyes scanned the room, a chilling glint in their depths, searching for any dissenters. He then issued a stark warning. We will catch everyone trying to get a free ride. The words were accompanied by a sudden, jarring sound, and the lights in the room flickered ominously, then plunged into darkness. A recruit looked around, confused. A blackout? He muttered, as the room plunged into darkness. The only sounds were nervous whispers and the shifting of uneasy bodies in their seats, a palpable fear. Why did the doors just close? Another recruit asked, his voice trembling slightly. The sudden confinement added to the growing sense of dread, trapping them in the unknown, amplifying their anxieties. Shh, someone else whispered, trying to maintain calm. I think they're going to show us a new presentation. But the attempt at normalcy was futile against the palpable fear, a desperate attempt. Suddenly, a loud metallic clanking echoed through the dark room. It sounded like heavy machinery engaging, a deep, unsettling rumble that vibrated through the floor beneath them, growing steadily louder. The noise grew louder, transforming into the distinct sound of a train accelerating. The recruits felt a jolt, realizing they were moving, despite being in what they thought was an auditorium, a chilling discovery. A calm, automated voice then announced, "Passengers, thank you for using the Abyss Transit Authority today." The words were chilling, confirming their worst fears, sealing their fate within this mysterious system. "Our train does not stop," the voice continued, its tone devoid of emotion. The finality of the statement sent a fresh wave of terror through the trapped recruits, sealing their fate, leaving no room for escape. For a pleasant journey to your final destination, please listen carefully to the announcements. The implication of a final destination was not lost on anyone present, a grim promise of what lay ahead. On a screen, distorted text flashed, WH, WHHHH, WHW, followed by stay on, next, PL, Sir, May, NSE, TED. It was a chaotic, unsettling display, adding to the confusion, a jumble of digital static. A subway? Is this some kind of VR? A recruit asked, desperately clinging to the idea that this was just an elaborate simulation. The hope was quickly fading in their eyes, replaced by dread. Did we really just move? Another recruit wondered, his voice laced with disbelief. The physical sensation of motion was undeniable, pushing them further into a terrifying reality, a nightmare unfolding. A recruit pressed his hand against the door, trying to open it. The doors aren't opening," he stammered, his efforts proving futile against the unyielding metal, a cruel realization. Kim Soleum watched with a grim expression. This was not some new technology, nor was it an escape room. He knew, with a certainty that chilled him to the bone, what this truly was, a deadly game. And it's definitely not an escape room, he thought, his mind racing. The implications were far more dire than any game, pointing to a real and present danger, a sinister test of survival. Then again, who could have expected that getting a job would lead to such a crazy situation? The promise of a dream job had turned into a nightmare, an unforeseen horror, a twisted reality. On his ID card, the words, Daydream Inc, Field Exploration Team, Kim Soleum Employee, stood out, a stark reminder of how he had ended up in this predicament, a badge of his misfortune. He realized he was now part of the Field Exploration Team, a title that once seemed prestigious but now carried a heavy, terrifying weight. This was no ordinary job, but a fight for survival. The screen suddenly changed, displaying, "This station is Sorao." Then, Sorao Station. The name itself was a harbinger of despair, solidifying the sinister atmosphere, a chilling destination. Right now, Kim Soleum thought, his eyes wide with a terrifying realization. He had entered an urban legend, a modern myth that had inexplicably become his reality, a story come to life. He remembered the urban legend, an exhausting commute home, feeling unusually tired, then waking up inside a subway car, a commuter trapped in a mysterious transit system, a horrifying fate. The voice on the intercom then instructed, "Passengers whose final destination is Sorrow Station, please disembark according to the announcements." The screen doors hissed open with an eerie sound. "It just looks like a normal subway station," a recruit muttered, peering out cautiously. The ordinary appearance made the situation even more unsettling, a facade over something dark, something dangerous. "Can't we just get off here?" another recruit asked, a desperate hope in his voice. The thought of escaping, even to an unknown station, seemed preferable to staying on the train, a chance for freedom. "It says they're closing soon. Shouldn't we hurry up and get off before they do?" a frantic voice urged. The pressure to make a choice mounted as the seconds ticked by, a terrifying countdown. "Damn it," Kim Soleum thought, observing the scene. Other than the weird station name, it looked perfectly normal. Yet, a gut feeling told him to stay put, to heed the chilling announcement, a silent warning. It would be better if you didn't go out, he advised, his voice calm but firm. He sensed a trap, an unseen danger lurking beyond the seemingly normal platform, a hidden threat. Where in Korea is there a station like that? One recruit argued, pointing out the absurdity of Sorrow Station. The logical part of him struggled against the growing unease, a battle of wits. Well, that's true, but... Another began, uncertain. The first recruit then challenged Kim Soleum. Are you going to take responsibility if we end up at a disadvantage for not leaving? Just then, the automated voice announced, the doors are closing. A sudden loud clang echoed through the car as the doors began to slide shut, trapping those who hesitated, sealing their fate. One recruit, caught off guard, screamed as the closing doors crushed his arm, a sickening crunch filling the air. His desperate attempt to escape ended in horrific pain, a grim warning to others. We couldn't get off, one of the remaining recruits cried out in despair. Ah, fuck, all because of someone. Blame and terror filled the air, a desperate cocktail of emotions, a bitter accusation. Then, from the ceiling, a viscous, dark substance began to drip, slowly at first, then faster, pooling on the floor. A horrifying realization dawned on the trapped recruits as it grew thicker, more menacing. Screams erupted as the substance quickly engulfed the train car, a terrifying, suffocating tide. This was only the beginning of their probation. The real storm hadn't hit yet, and nobody was ready. Kim Soleum worked for Daydream Inc, a company that managed darkness, essentially ghost stories. Employees were dispatched into these narratives to perform missions, with new recruits facing their probationary period within these terrifying tales. Soleum found himself on a train departing from Sorrow Station, entering a death survival scenario. He believed he had an advantage, having diligently read all the ghost story wikis, ensuring he knew every detail. Soleum thought this extensive knowledge would make him an overpowered protagonist, possessing absolute superiority in information within his favorite fictional world. He imagined monopolizing future opportunities and items, just like the heroes in his favorite stories. It would be so nice if he could actually be that kind of character, a true world hunter. However, there was a significant problem, a very crucial one that undermined all his perceived advantages. Despite his vast knowledge of the lore, Soleum was, at his core, an absolute coward. He couldn't handle anything scary. He only enjoyed ghost stories in plain text, avoiding any visuals or background music that might trigger his intense fear. If a wiki had a scary background, he would immediately adjust the settings to show only the text. He even hit not interested on all ghost stories on Wetube because of their terrifying thumbnails. Even when he submitted his own ghost stories, he couldn't bring himself to include a single image. He had to apologize to a ghost, explaining that he was a coward and couldn't look at images for any ghost story. His friends often teased him for his fear, asking if it was true he turned down a date because the girl wanted to watch a horror movie. Soleum was genuinely sorry, unable to deny his profound cowardice. He was truly a total coward, unable to face anything frightening, and now he found himself trapped within one of these very ghost stories, a death survival format. He soon found himself in a dire situation. The wiki had described his current assignment, the field exploration team, as a suicide squad, a tragic team. Kim Soleum felt utterly screwed. 8 people were in his boarding car, but then one died, causing widespread panic and screams amongst the other recruits. Did someone actually just die? Someone cried out in horror. Soleum could only listen to the fearful wails, knowing he was already in deep trouble. The train then announced its next stop, Grudge Station. The doors were on his right, promising a comfortable trip to their destination, but Soleum knew better. He despaired, wishing for death to escape the horror. Just kill me, he thought, the reality of his situation pressing down on him with overwhelming force. Amidst his terror, he noticed a first-place R Records of Dark Exploration Real Goods box on the seat beside him. It was a peculiar sight in such a grim setting. He wondered if this strange object was only visible to him. Was it a hallucination, or was this box truly there, offering some unexpected twist to his predicament? He cautiously reached out and touched it. His fingers brushed against the smooth surface of the box, a stark contrast to the grimy, blood-splattered environment of the train car. This simple action triggered a memory, pulling him back from the immediate horror of the train. The world around him shimmered, and he was suddenly somewhere else. A few hours earlier, he had been at a pop-up store for Records of Dark Exploration, an online ghost story world building concept he deeply loved and followed. He was a dedicated fan, completely immersed in its lore, and had purchased many items, filling his eco bag with merchandise from the store. He had even taken a paid leave day to attend, and he had actually come last week too. His passion for the series was undeniable. He was considering the roulette event, a character maker that promised unique prizes. He initially hesitated due to his social dignity as a working adult. He couldn't bring himself to participate in such a public display. However, a staff member reminded him that the pop-up store was closing the next day. More importantly, the roulette event was only until today. If he didn't do it now, he would miss his last chance. The urgency swayed him. "Would you like to participate?" the staff member asked, their voice bright and encouraging. Soleum sighed, his internal conflict finally resolving. "Yes, thank you, staff member," he replied, feeling a mix of embarrassment and anticipation. He walked over to the roulette wheel, ready for his fate. He spun the wheel, expecting a participation prize, perhaps a notepad, which was usually the 7th place reward. He planned to simply get that and go home. But to his astonishment, the pointer landed on the grand prize, 1st place. A collective gasp and then cheers erupted from the other attendees. The staff congratulated him warmly, their voices filled with genuine excitement. "You have won the grand prize, 1st place," they announced. "For real?" he mumbled, still processing his incredible luck. This was beyond his wildest expectations, changing his plans entirely. They also offered to make him custom on-site merchandise. He gave his name, Kim Soleum, feeling a thrill of excitement at the personalized item. To his surprise, the custom merch was an employee ID card for Daydream Inc. Field Exploration Team, employee Kim Soleum. It was a perfect replica from the story. He recognized Daydream Inc. as one of the 3 most famous factions in records of dark exploration, and the Field Exploration Team was notorious within the lore. This team was known for getting ground by exploring bizarre phenomena at any moment. Many named characters in the story belong to this Field Exploration Team. "I'm really looking forward to what kind of achievements employee Kim Soleum has made in the world of records of dark exploration," the staff member exclaimed. Soleum had imagined his character, Kim Soleum, making great achievements in this fictional world. He had cherishingly accepted the ID card, feigning enthusiasm. But internally, he knew he would shove it out of sight immediately. He was a coward after all, and the thought of such dangerous exploration terrified him. Everything suddenly went black, and when he opened his eyes again, he was back in the grim reality of the train car. The memory faded, leaving him in the present. He looked at the item from the box he had just touched, a memorial pop socket. This was the true prize, not just a piece of merchandise. He recalled from the wiki that this F-rank item, when attached to a smartphone, visually manifested remembered text into clear, organized pages. It seemed to show memories as text. This was an incredible discovery. If this item truly worked as described, it could be his lifeline in this terrifying ghost story world. He attached the pop socket to his phone, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and desperate hope. A bright glow emanated from the device. And it worked. The articles he vaguely remembered from Records of Dark Exploration appeared on the screen with flawless replication, just as the wiki described. The ghost story world he had entered, titled "Welcome to the Abyss Transit Authority," was a vast collection of hundreds of ghost stories, fueled by various creative desires. Recalling all of them, or deducing the correct survival methods for every unpredictable situation, was incredibly difficult, even for someone who had read all the wikis. But now, with this pop socket, he had access to his knowledge, presented in an organized, readable format. This was his one true advantage. What he truly needed to find right now were past escape cases for this specific ghost story. He knew the information was somewhere in his memories. He searched through the information the pop socket provided, scrolling intently. A rough idea of where to get off at Grudge Station began to form in his mind. "I see," he murmured, a flicker of hope in his eyes. He had found a potential solution, a path to survival in this death game. He knew this stop was Grudge Station, and he now had a rough idea of where to exit. His knowledge was finally proving useful. However, a critical problem emerged, dashing his newfound hope. He had no signal, and his data wasn't working either. The pop socket only accessed his internal memories. It couldn't connect to the live internet or provide new information. He was still stuck, reliant only on what he had already committed to memory. He looked around at the other passengers, most of them still in a state of shock or despair. He knew he couldn't get off alone. His conscience, a small voice inside him, suggested it was his duty to save countless lives. But Soleum knew his true motivation was far more self-serving. Of course not, he thought, dismissing the noble idea. While he admitted to feeling a bit like that, his personal terror outweighed any altruism. "Didn't I tell you?" he silently reminded himself, his face etched with fear. He simply couldn't get off alone. His cowardice was too profound. The stations were described as utterly terrifying in the wikis, one filled with eyeballs, another turned upside down, some completely pitch black. He feared he would simply faint in the middle of such a scene and fail to escape. The thought alone sent shivers down his spine. Therefore, he had to somehow persuade everyone else on the train to leave together. His survival depended entirely on the collective courage of the group. He knew he couldn't face the horrors of Grudge Station by himself. His fear was a tangible, suffocating weight that paralyzed him. His eyes darted nervously around the car, searching for a way to rally the terrified passengers. He needed to find a convincing argument, quickly. The train doors hissed open, revealing a glimpse of the station's unsettling interior. The air grew heavy with an ominous presence, confirming his deepest fears. He swallowed hard, his hands trembling slightly as he clutched his phone. This was his moment to act, to overcome his fear for everyone's sake and his own. His resolve hardened, even as a chill ran down his spine. He knew the path ahead was fraught with unimaginable horrors, far worse than any text description. But with his knowledge, limited as it was, without a signal, and the desperate need for company, Kim Soleum prepared to make his plea. His life, and theirs, hung in the balance. Kim Soleum found himself thrust into a bizarre, terrifying reality, a situation ripped straight from a supernatural web novel he knew intimately. He understood that simply yelling about strange phenomena or the encroaching darkness would be foolish. People would never believe him without proper groundwork. His strategy was to take things slowly, first earning the trust of those around him. Soleum knew that if he could convince just one or two individuals, the rest would easily follow their lead, caught up in the natural human tendency for herd mentality. He scanned the faces of the terrified passengers, searching for anyone who seemed to need help or, more importantly, someone who might provide a crucial clue to help him form a bond. He needed an opening, a way to connect his knowledge to their immediate fears. Suddenly, he saw her. A young woman, seemingly overwhelmed, was crying out in distress. Soleum watched as she gripped her head, a clear sign of profound fear and confusion. He felt a surge of recognition, a flicker of an idea. He observed her closely, realizing she was muttering to herself, her words barely audible above the low hum of the train. It was a small detail, but in this new, terrifying reality, every observation felt significant, a potential key to survival. The young woman looked up, her eyes wide with fear, and uttered a phrase that caught Soleum's attention. She asked aloud, almost to herself, "What even is this? It's not even a wet tube ghost story." Her words resonated deeply with his own thoughts. Soleum felt a jolt. This was his chance. He had found her, a person who perceived the predicament in a way that aligned perfectly with his secret knowledge. This was the moment he had been looking for, an unexpected opportunity. He approached her cautiously, making sure not to startle her further. He needed to appear calm and collected, a steady presence amidst the chaos. Soleum knew his first words would be critical in establishing any form of rapport. He gently asked her if she had just mentioned a ghost story. The young woman, startled by his sudden presence, looked up at him, her eyes still filled with a mixture of fear and surprise, not quite understanding his question. She stammered, explaining that she sometimes watched ghost stories online and the current situation just reminded her of them. Soleum nodded, feigning understanding, though he knew the reality was far more sinister than a simple online video. He then asked her to explain in more detail. Soleum emphasized that this did not seem like a normal situation, so sharing information would be for everyone's benefit. He hoped his rational approach would encourage her openness. The young woman, whose name was Young In, hesitated but then began to speak. She admitted it wasn't really information, just that everything happening felt exactly like a ghost story she might watch on YouTube, terrifying and unreal. Youngun recounted how the auditorium had suddenly transformed into a subway train, and how those people, just moments ago, had been alive and well. Her voice trembled as she recalled the horrifying way they had died, a memory fresh in their minds. She apologized, her voice catching as the memory overwhelmed her. The sheer brutality of what they had witnessed was too much, the words suddenly hitting her hard as she spoke them aloud, bringing fresh waves of grief and terror. Soleum reassured her, admitting he felt the exact same way. He confided that he could barely think straight with all the nonsense happening around them. This shared vulnerability was a crucial step in building her trust. He added that he also felt like throwing up, a small admission that further humanized him in her eyes. Youngun, however, seemed to find a strange strength in his composure, remarking on his cool-headed demeanor. Young Gun commented that he looked like the most cool-headed person there. Soleum wryly replied that she could only say that because she hadn't seen him faint coolly yet, a remark that brought a hint of grim humor to the tense situation. Just then, another passenger, a man with a stern expression, interrupted them. He asked Youngin if she was the one who had been sitting next to him earlier in the auditorium, his gaze sharp and probing. Youngin seemed to recognize him, confirming that she had indeed been sitting beside him. Soleum listened intently, recognizing the man's face from his extensive knowledge of the web novel's wiki. His heart began to pound. The man then introduced himself. "My name is Bayek Sahan," he stated calmly. Soleum's eyes widened slightly. Bayek Sahan was a major character, a named employee from the very web novel Soleum had read. Soleum's internal alarm bells rang loudly. Bayek Sahan was a named employee, a significant figure in the records of dark exploration web novel. His final rank was section chief with 106 total explorations, 17 of which were special cases. The wiki entry continued, revealing Bayek Sahan's ominous nickname, Viper. Soleum knew this character was crucial, and his sudden appearance meant the stakes were even higher than he had initially anticipated. Soleum inwardly confirmed his identity, recognizing him from the wiki. He knew Bayek Sahan was a key player, and his presence could either be a massive advantage or a dangerous complication in their desperate fight for survival within this ghost story. Younggun, unaware of Soleum's internal turmoil, proposed that despite the chaos, they should at least introduce themselves properly. She then offered her name, "I'm Go Younggun," extending a hand in a gesture of civility. Soleum's mind raced. He had never heard the name Go Young-in in his extensive reading of the web novel's wiki. This meant one of two things, both equally concerning in this perilous situation. Either she had resolved ghost stories relatively easily and left the company early, her story not significant enough to be recorded. Or, a far more chilling possibility, she had died early in an exploration, never achieving prominence. Soleum recalled that occasionally, named employees only appeared under nicknames or code names. However, in those cases, their character traits were distinct enough that he could usually figure out their true identity at a glance. Younggun did not fit that pattern. A wave of frustration washed over him. This unexpected variable complicated his plans. He had counted on his knowledge being absolute, but Younggun's unknown status was a significant unsettling gap in his information. He pushed his thoughts aside and introduced himself to Youngin and Bayek Sahan. "I'm Kim Soleum," he stated, his voice steady despite the turmoil in his mind, maintaining his composure as a survival mechanism. While Soleum and the others conversed, the larger group of passengers had fragmented, splitting up within the train car. Some moved towards the front, seemingly intent on communicating with the very first car, a risky endeavor. Soleum observed them, noting their actions. He knew their attempt would likely fail. His knowledge of this particular ghost story indicated that movement between cars was strictly prohibited, a deadly rule. He watched as the train approached a station, its name prominently displayed, Grudge Station. The word itself hung in the air, a mix of hope and dread. Soleum knew the truth behind that seemingly positive name. Younggun questioned the name, noting that rapture had a somewhat positive connotation, didn't it? She looked at Soleum, searching for reassurance, hoping the name implied safety or an escape from their nightmare. Soleum remained silent for a moment, his expression grim. He knew the truth, a truth that would shatter any hope they held. He could not agree with her assessment, knowing the station's true, horrific nature. He firmly stated, "No." Soleum understood that one could not determine which station was safe to get off at simply by its name. His knowledge of the Abyss Transit Authority records was far too vast for such a simplistic conclusion. He explained that the theme of station names changed with each appearance of this specific ghost story. Sometimes they were colors like red, yellow, or blue, and other times they were body parts, or even years. Soleum recalled a past instance where Blue Station had seen two people escape successfully. However, other attempts at seemingly safe-sounding stations like Cochlea Station or year-named stations like 2026 Station had resulted in failure. He emphasized that it was impossible to escape by simply finding a word that seemed to match a correct station. The logic of this ghost story was far more insidious, designed to trick and trap its victims. However, Soleum continued, they could look at the trends. He had studied the Abyss Transit Authority exploration records up to Case 56, and these records provided crucial insights into past escape attempts and failures. He recalled the details from the wiki. 2 people escaped successfully. Attempt, Blue Station, or escape failed attempt, Cochlea Station. The data was inconsistent regarding positive or negative connotations. He remembered another example. Escape failed, attempt, 2026 station. The data showed no clear pattern linking positive names to successful escapes. This station, Rapture, could be a death trap. Soleum also recalled station names indicated by serial killers, a truly gruesome theme. The records were filled with chilling details, a testament to the sheer horror of this particular ghost story. Even recalling the examples up to case 56, Soleum reiterated that the positive connotation of a station name had no correlation whatsoever with the probability of escape. Rapture was no different from any other name. Meanwhile, some passengers, seeing the pristine, clean appearance of Rapture Station, began to wonder if they should get off and look for other people. The station looked perfectly fine, almost inviting. Soleum internally screamed, no. The number of his companions, his potential allies, and his own mental state depended on preventing them from making such a catastrophic mistake. He knew what awaited them. He urgently pleaded, please wait. Soleum knew the horror that lay beyond those doors, a fate so gruesome it defied belief. He had to stop them, even if it meant revealing some of his uncanny knowledge. Young-on looked at him, her eyes wide with a mixture of hope and fear, and asked, "Are you sure?" She sought his conviction, a definitive answer in their desperate situation, clinging to any shred of certainty. Soleum paused, then firmly replied, "Excuse me? Sure about what?" He needed to buy time, to make them question their assumptions without revealing the full, terrifying extent of his meta-knowledge. He looked directly at them, his gaze intense. "Are you sure that it's safe out there?" he challenged. He wanted them to feel the weight of their decision, to understand the grave risk they were about to take. He then reminded everyone that most of them agreed this situation was like a ghost story. He questioned whether they had ever seen things turn out well when someone just relied on luck and feelings to make a decision. Soleum pressed on, asking if they planned on risking their lives so easily, without any deduction or reasoning. His words were a calculated attempt to sow doubt and make them question their impulsive desire to disembark. A male passenger, clearly frustrated, retorted that they had no great deductions of their own. He dismissed Soleum's talk as nonsense, accusing him of thinking this was some sort of game show. The man demanded if someone had given Soleum a hint or something, implying he was cheating or bluffing. His anger was palpable, a desperate lashing out born from fear and impatience, wanting to just get off the train. Soleum calmly replied, "Yes, there was a hint." He pointed upwards, indicating the train's overhead speaker. The passengers looked up, confusion etched on their faces, wondering what he could possibly mean. He explained that he was talking about the announcement. From the very beginning, the train's announcement had informed them of this crucial fact, a detail they had all likely overlooked in their panic. Soleum reiterated the announcement's key phrases. "Passengers, thank you for using the Abyss Transit Authority today. Our train does not stop. For a pleasant journey to your final destination, please listen carefully to the announcements." He emphasized that it had been explicitly stated since the beginning to pay attention and follow the announcements. This was their lifeline, their guide through the treacherous journey within the ghost story. He then played a specific part of the announcement. Passengers whose final destination is Rapture Station should get off according to the announcement. The words hung in the air, chillingly clear. Soleum then directly asked the group, "Is there anyone here whose final destination is Rapture Station?" He looked at each of them, his gaze firm, waiting for their answer, knowing the implications. A passenger stammered, admitting that living happily and rapturously was everyone's goal in life, but their final destination was not Rapture Station. No one claimed it was their intended stop. Soleum confirmed that no one's final destination was Rapture Station. The same male passenger from earlier, growing impatient, accused Soleum of being too nosy, demanding if he would take responsibility if they couldn't escape because of him. Soleum, without hesitation, declared, "I will take responsibility." His resolute tone stunned the other passengers into silence. They looked at him, surprised by his unwavering confidence and bold claim. The screen doors to Rapture Station began to close, a final warning. Soleum added that he had intended for them to escape together anyway, implying his actions were for their collective good, not just his own survival. He knew this was enough. He had done all he could to warn them, to provide the crucial information. He had taken responsibility, leaving the choice to them, but preventing those within his immediate reach from making a fatal error. Soleum then noted that now, there wouldn't be anyone getting angry at him and asking why he didn't let them off. His decision, though difficult, had saved them from a terrible fate he knew was coming. Suddenly, he cried out, "Uh-oh!" The people in the front car, ignoring his warnings or simply unable to hear them, had gotten off at Rapture Station. A wave of dread washed over the passengers in Soleum's car. Youngun and the others watched in horror, asking if the people who got off would be okay. Soleum looked away, unable to answer, knowing the gruesome reality. He didn't want to believe what was about to unfold. Kim Soleum found himself trapped on a mysterious train, forced to play its deadly games of survival. He was an observant and intelligent man, constantly analyzing the cryptic rules and the reactions of his fellow passengers. Each station brought a new challenge, and the consequences of failure were always grim. One particular announcement echoed through the carriage, catching everyone's attention. It spoke of a lost item, specifically, a 20-something-year-old, Type A adult male's left eye. This unusual detail hung heavy in the air, stirring a mix of confusion and unease among those present. The announcement further instructed that anyone who found this peculiar lost item should disembark at the very next station. There, they were to hand it over to a station employee. Soleum listened intently, his mind racing to process the implications of such a strange directive. The voice on the intercom emphasized a critical point. Only exactly one person could escape by successfully returning the lost item. This added a layer of intense competition and desperation to an already tense situation, making everyone wary of each other. Soleum heard the description again, a chill running down his spine. A 20-something-year-old, Type A, adult male's left eye. He understood that Type A likely referred to blood type, and the age bracket was very specific. He pondered the announcement, realizing with a growing sense of dread that he, Kim Soleum, perfectly fit every single part of that description. He was a Type A adult male in his 20s, and he possessed a left eye. A wave of uncertainty washed over him. Should he reveal himself as the target, or should he simply let this unsettling information slide? After all, he thought, everyone could supposedly survive if they just got off at the right station eventually. His internal debate was interrupted as other passengers began to react. The atmosphere in the carriage quickly grew tense, and Soleum worried that if one person tried to escape first, it could easily lead to infighting among them all. A man with a worried expression suggested they identify the person first, hoping to avoid chaos. Another passenger agreed, acknowledging they truly didn't know what unpredictable events might unfold if they acted rashly. The man then started asking about ages. He revealed he was in his 30s, seemingly trying to eliminate himself as a candidate. His voice carried a tremor of fear, a sentiment surely shared by many in the confined space. Another passenger chimed in, stating his blood type was B, and therefore he didn't fit the specified criteria. He seemed relieved to be excluded, though the danger still loomed over everyone on the train. Then, the man who had first suggested identifying the person turned to Kim Soleum. He noted how young Soleum looked for his age and asked what his blood type was, his gaze direct and probing. Soleum, maintaining a calm demeanor, responded that he was Type AB. He offered the information with a slight hesitation, knowing full well that he was not being entirely truthful about his blood type. He thought to himself that his statement was indeed a lie. He actually possessed Type A blood, just as the announcement had specified. He kept this truth hidden, choosing his words carefully in the tense environment. He reasoned that since he intended to let the opportunity pass anyway, there was no real need to reveal that he was, in fact, the exact target of the lost item announcement. His survival depended on discretion. The truth was, Kim Soleum was a perfect fit for the criteria. He held the key to this particular escape, but he had a feeling there was more to the situation than simply handing over an eye. As the train continued, the next station was announced, Anger Station. The name itself was ominous, stirring a fresh wave of anxiety among the passengers. Soleum braced himself for what might come next. The platform doors began to open, and the man who had previously asked about Soleum's blood type, Baek Sehon, suddenly moved. He turned to Soleum, a strange glint in his eye, asking if he had said he was Type A. Soleum, surprised by the direct question, hesitated for a moment before confirming, yes. He wondered why Baek Sehon was so focused on him, a growing sense of unease settling in his stomach. Without another word, Baek Sehon lunged. His movements were swift and brutal, aimed directly at another passenger. The sudden, violent attack shocked everyone in the carriage into horrified silence. A blood-curdling scream tore through the air. Sahan, with a chilling determination, gouged out the eye of the unsuspecting passenger. The scene was gruesome, a horrifying display of desperation and cruelty. The victim collapsed, screaming in agony, clutching their face. Sahayan then turned, holding up two items, his own left eye, which he had clearly removed, and the freshly gouged eye of the other passenger. He declared that they had said people could escape if they just gave them one eye. He then questioned why everyone else was waiting around like idiots, his voice laced with a frantic urgency. He then presented his own left eye, which perfectly matched the description of the lost item. He also held the other passenger's eye, believing only one item would be accepted, so he decided to damage the other. Soleum watched the horrifying spectacle, his mind processing the man's actions. He recognized Baik Sahan as the Viper, a nickname from the records of Dark Exploration, a collection of grim accounts he had read. He had thought Sahayon might be acting out of a naive, untainted sense of justice as a new recruit. However, the records he had read clearly depicted Sahayon as someone who possessed a distinctly ruthless and calculating nature. Baik Sahan, with a maniacal grin, announced that the platform doors were closing. He seemed convinced of his success, utterly oblivious to the true nature of the lost item challenge. Soleum realized that Sahayon had completely misunderstood the situation. He had gone too far, resorting to extreme violence when it was entirely unnecessary. The true solution was much simpler and far less brutal. He knew that a lost item inherently meant something that wasn't his. Sahan's actions, though driven by a twisted logic, missed this fundamental point. Soleum began to search around him, remembering something. He recalled seeing something earlier, a small, discreet object. His fingers brushed against the hidden compartment, and he felt a small, cold vial. He carefully retrieved it, his heart pounding with anticipation. He held the vial up, examining its contents. Inside, suspended in a clear liquid, was a perfectly preserved left eye. It was clearly not his, but rather something someone else had lost. The vial had a label: female, age 27, blood type A, Rh+. Soleum realized the true nature of the lost item announcement. It wasn't about his eye, but about finding an eye lost by someone else. He understood that the lost item announcement was, in fact, a scavenger hunt. Passengers were meant to find the candidate for the lost item inside the train, and then disembark carrying the item that perfectly matched the description. He knew there were instances where people coincidentally escaped by presenting something they already possessed. However, Baik Saham's violent actions had crossed a critical line stemming from a dangerous misinterpretation. Soleum held the vial, the preserved eye staring back at him. He reflected on Sahan's desperate act, recognizing the man's error. He had attacked an innocent person and sacrificed his own eye for nothing. The platform doors closed, leaving Baik Sahan on the station. Soleum observed the other passengers, who were still reeling from the shock of what they had just witnessed, their faces pale with fear. Then, a new announcement echoed through the train. The lost item has been safely handed over to the station employee. The voice thanked them sincerely for their cooperation, a chillingly polite tone after the violence. The train continued its journey, leaving the chaos of Anger Station behind. A female passenger beside Soleum murmured, asking if he had heard the scream that had just pierced the silence. She noted that no one felt sorry for Baik Sahan after his brutal actions. Another passenger expressed concern for the victim, noting that his cornea was almost certainly damaged. A man asked if the concerned passenger was a medical professional. She admitted she had gone to college for it but changed majors, so she couldn't even take the national exam, calling herself just a fake. Soleum, however, remarked that simply getting into medical school was impressive enough, regardless of whether she finished. He offered a small word of encouragement, recognizing her inherent intelligence. The train then announced the next station, Hatred Station. The name itself was a stark warning, and the passengers looked to Soleum, wondering if he would suggest they get off there. He sensed their unspoken question, the burden of their reliance on him. He acknowledged that it was a bit burdening, but he was also grateful that they were looking to him for guidance in their fear. He realized that everyone was just doing it because they were scared and anxious. He admitted, with a quiet sincerity, that he was sorry, as he himself was equally scared and anxious. He confided that he was trying to instigate everyone, hoping they would think for themselves and take agency. He wanted them to understand the rules, not just blindly follow. The female passenger then shared her own thoughts. She had been trying to figure out the meaning of the final destination that Soleum had mentioned earlier, seeking to understand the train's ultimate goal. She suggested that if it was a person's final destination, it could simply be death. She wondered if they should get off if a similar word for death or an ending came up, her voice tinged with morbid curiosity. She admitted that she had thought it might sound like she was telling everyone to die, so she couldn't bring herself to say it aloud. Soleum, however, found her opinion to be quite persuasive. He then elaborated on his own theory, asking what a destination truly meant. He explained that if one looked it up in a dictionary, it referred to a purpose, an intended realization, or a direction. He believed the theme of this train itself was intuitive. It instructed passengers to sit in their seats and find the lost item, assuring them that their safety was guaranteed as long as they followed the instructions. He pointed out that even those who got off at the wrong stations paid the price in a very intuitive way. This reinforced his belief that the train's rules, though deadly, were fundamentally logical. So, he concluded, the destination this train was talking about couldn't simply be a physical location. It had to mean something more abstract, a point that they had not yet reached in their journey. He proposed that destination, in this context, meant something I lack. He illustrated this with past experiences on the train, connecting the station names to individual deficiencies. He recalled the blue station, where people without blue belongings struggled to escape. He also remembered a station marked with the name of a serial killer, where most people escaped because none of them were serial killers. He reasoned that thinking about it this way made the criteria for choosing which station to get off at much simpler. The theme for these stations, he realized, was emotions. Therefore, their next destination should be an emotion that he, Kim Soleum, currently lacked. He waited for the next announcement, his theory solidifying in his mind. The train announced its arrival at Taepyeong Station. Soleum heard the name, which meant peace or tranquility, and a profound realization washed over him. Given all the fear, violence, and anxiety he had experienced on this dreadful train, peace was precisely the emotion he lacked most. He knew with absolute certainty that this was their station. He looked at the other passengers, who were still watching him, their faces etched with uncertainty and hope. He knew they were waiting for him to make the decision, to tell them what to do. With a calm certainty that belied the terror he had felt, Kim Soleum declared their course of action. He told everyone that they would get off here, at Taepyeong Station, at the place of peace. A collective gasp rippled through the carriage, some faces reflecting relief, others still fear. Soleum's decision hung in the air, a gamble based on his intuition as the train doors began to open. This was only the beginning. The real storm hasn't hit yet. Kim Soleum often pondered what emotion he truly lacked, a feeling that eluded him despite everyone else seeming to possess it. He knew that most people experienced a full spectrum of emotions throughout their lives, from joy to anger, sorrow to pleasure. Finding an emotion that none among them possessed seemed an impossible task, a unique void in the human experience. Yet, he wondered, what if there was indeed an exception, a singular emotion he was missing? The train's announcement cut through his thoughts, declaring the next stop was Taepyeong Station. The name itself resonated with the very concept he was grappling with, a state of mind free from worries. The dictionary defined Taepyeong as a state of mind with no worries or anxieties, a peaceful existence. He reflected on the irony, knowing that as long as one was human, true freedom from anxiety felt impossible. Especially in their current terrifying situation, the idea of being free from worry was nothing short of a cruel joke. He looked at the man beside him, Go Young-gun, who was clearly trembling with fear. Go Young-gun's face was pale, his eyes wide with panic as he struggled to maintain his composure. He was clearly at his breaking point, barely able to stand on his own. Kim Soleum instinctively reached out, offering his support. He calmly told Go Young-gun that he would help him through this, a quiet promise in the midst of the escalating chaos. A profound sense of relief washed over Go Young-gun as he stammered his thanks to Kim Soleum. Around them, other terrified passengers also began to look towards Kim Soleum with a glimmer of hope. Since Kim Soleum had taken the lead, everyone else had begun to follow his example, clinging to his quiet confidence. He understood then that there was no turning back from this path. The train car itself was a scene of utter horror, drenched in what looked like a sea of blood. The gruesome sight was enough to make anyone question their choices. The passengers were visibly shaken, their faces contorted in fear. Go Young-gun, still trembling, voiced the question on everyone's mind, wondering if this truly was the correct decision. A woman with brown hair, one of the other passengers, approached Kim Soleum. She told him that among all of them, he was the only one who seemed truly certain. She noted his remarkable composure, even as everyone else around them succumbed to terror. Some had made a huge fuss just to save themselves, but Kim Soleum had remained steadfast. He wondered if her words were truly accurate, if he had indeed remained that calm. The woman continued, stating that she would rather trust and follow a good person like him. With a renewed sense of purpose, Kim Soleum turned to those still hesitant within the train. He declared that getting off here was the right thing to do, his voice steady. He urged everyone to get off the train, emphasizing that this was the correct answer. His conviction cut through the pervasive fear, offering a fragile thread of hope. Kim Soleum called out to them, telling everyone to come over to where he was. Go Young-gun, still visibly shaken, looked at him with a glimmer of trust. He confessed that he also trusted Kim Soleum. his voice barely a whisper. A small, hopeful smile touched Kim Soleum's lips, acknowledging the man's faith in him. Kim Soleum encouraged them not to hesitate because of him, urging them all to move forward. Go Young-in, though still scared, nodded slowly, accepting the path ahead. He quietly affirmed his agreement, the fear still evident in his eyes, but now tinged with a fragile determination. The decision was made. They would leave the train. Kim Soleum instructed them to focus only on the sensation of going up, a simple command meant to distract from the horrors around them. He led the way, his gaze fixed upward. They began their ascent, one step at a time, to the blood-stained, decaying station. Each upward movement was a small victory against the overwhelming despair. The climb was relentless, the sounds of their footsteps echoing in the grim silence, broken only by the occasional gasp of a struggling passenger. The air was thick with the scent of decay. Suddenly, the oppressive darkness gave way to a blinding, brilliant light. They emerged into a pristine, white space, a stark contrast to the horrors they had just escaped. A man stood before them, smiling broadly, and congratulated the new recruits. The sudden shift from terror to this bright, formal setting was disorienting. Kim Soleum began to count them, his gaze sweeping over the survivors. 1, 2, he murmured, his voice still a little hoarse from the ordeal they had just endured. 3, 4, he continued, each number a testament to their survival. The relief was palpable, a shared breath held for too long finally released. 5, he counted, his eyes reflecting a profound sense of exhaustion and a quiet triumph. They had made it through the impossible. 6, 7, he finished, a small smile finally gracing his lips. They had survived, against all odds, a small group clinging to the hope he had offered. 8 people had survived the terrifying ordeal. A collective sigh of relief passed through the group, their faces etched with exhaustion, but also a newfound hope. The smiling man, who was clearly the host, announced that they had all survived and successfully completed their probation. He called it an incredible record. He elaborated, stating that unless there had been some failure in the difficulty adjustment, they were all truly elite-class individuals. His praise, however, felt unsettling. He then noticed the lack of reaction from the survivors, their faces still grim and silent. He wondered aloud what the HR department would think of this unusual silence. The host then declared his intention to pick the very best elite among them. He then turned to Kim Soleum, singling him out for special congratulations. Kim Soleum, startled, slowly rose to his feet. The host praised his situational awareness, remarking that he would do well in his department, a strange compliment given the circumstances. He then expressed a hint of regret that Kim Soleum wouldn't be joining his specific team. Kim Soleum, however, was lost in his own thoughts, wondering if any of this was truly happening. He questioned if everything they had known was destroyed, if this new, unsettling reality was their new existence. The host then announced a gift for everyone. He clarified that the gift was not just for the top recruit, but for everyone who had made it this far. Kim Soleum received a sleek black box. He opened the box, revealing its contents. The host then continued, announcing the next person to receive their gift. He called out Baek Sahyeon's name. Baek Sahyeon, however, appeared utterly traumatized, covering his face with his hands, barely able to look up. Another passenger looked just as disheveled, their eyes distant and vacant. It seemed clear they had endured immense suffering, far beyond a simple train ride. Kim Soleum observed the state of these individuals, realizing that the time flow must have been different for each train car. Some had clearly suffered for much longer. The host then asked if everyone had received their gifts. He then made a grand announcement, declaring that with this, they were all officially hired. They were now full-time members of Daydream Inc's field exploration team. The weight of this new reality settled upon the small group of survivors. The host then paused, a sly smile spreading across his face. He stated that not all recruits had put in equal effort during the probation. He argued that there were always people who simply tagged along for the ride, contributing nothing. He believed that fairness must come first, above all else. Suddenly, the individuals who had been sitting quietly in the background began to distort. Their bodies warped and stretched, their skin melting into grotesque, colorful forms. Their faces twisted into horrifying caricatures, their forms rippling like liquid. It was a shocking, visceral transformation that defied all natural laws. The horrifying spectacle unfolded before the remaining survivors, their eyes wide with disbelief and renewed terror. The truth of who these passengers really were was laid bare. The host then welcomed the remaining 13 new recruits, a chilling number after the initial 8 survivors. He congratulated them on their outstanding results. He declared that they had successfully secured full-time positions within the company. Go Youngun, however, could not bear it any longer. He rushed forward, his voice cracking as he declared his resignation. He wanted to quit immediately, to escape this nightmare at any cost. The host, still smiling, seemed unfazed by Go Youngun's outburst. He questioned why anyone would resign after securing such a great job. He urged Go Youngun to at least hear about the welfare benefits before making such a drastic decision. Go Youngun, desperate, asked if he could truly quit safely after listening. The host assured him that he could resign without any worries, but added that he might change his mind once he heard the benefits. His smile never wavered, a truly unsettling sight. He then declared that the whips are all gone, implying that the coercive pressure was now removed. This was a new phase, one of enticing rewards. He announced his intention to introduce the company's representative welfare benefits, his voice filled with a sinister cheerfulness. The air crackled with anticipation. The host proclaimed that the reward was now coming, a final, tantalizing offer. A shimmering, ethereal bottle appeared, glowing with an otherworldly light. Inside the bottle was a wish coupon, its surface sparkling with magic. The implications of such a reward were boundless, yet deeply unsettling, a promise of power in a terrifying new world. The protagonist was just another aspiring employee hoping for a fresh start, caught in the intimidating grandeur of a new company. He had dreamed of a place where innovation thrived, where the impossible seemed within reach, and a brighter future awaited all who dared to join. The company, a celebrated name in pharmaceuticals, boasted of its incredible advancements, even claiming to have conquered hair loss. This was a place of scientific marvels, where technology pushed boundaries and redefined what humanity believed was possible. However, their true innovation, the one that truly set them apart, was not a medical breakthrough. It was something entirely different, something they held back, a secret waiting for the perfect moment to be revealed to the eager new hires. A shimmering, otherworldly liquid in an elegant bottle was presented, glowing with an internal light. It was a sight that captivated everyone in the room, hinting at powers far beyond any conventional pharmaceutical product they had ever imagined. The presenter, a man of theatrical flair, then announced a live demonstration. He explained that a simple presentation could not do justice to its power, especially since it was his special day to collect a wish coupon. With a flourish, the presenter began to pour the luminous liquid. It swirled from a smaller vial into the main bottle, creating a cascade of light and color that mesmerized the entire audience, building an undeniable sense of wonder. Among the new recruits, murmurs of disbelief spread. A wish coupon, one person thought, is such a thing truly real, or is this just an elaborate trick? The air was thick with a mix of awe and deep suspicion. Another new hire echoed the sentiment, wondering what kind of wish the presenter intended to make. The uncertainty was palpable as everyone tried to reconcile the company's grand claims with their own cautious skepticism. Suddenly, a wave of energy swept through the room, accompanied by bright sparkles and a triumphant shout. It was an undeniable surge of power, signaling that something profound had just occurred, something truly miraculous. The presenter, now visibly younger and radiating joy, threw his arms wide. "This, my friends, is the undeniable power of the wish coupon," he exclaimed, basking in the stunned silence of the audience who witnessed his transformation. A collective gasp filled the room as the audience processed the impossible. The coupon could turn back time, reversing the effects of aging right before their eyes. It was a power that defied all logic and human understanding. The scene shifted to a symbolic representation, with glowing arrows indicating a flow of energy, suggesting the coupon's profound influence on reality. It was a visual metaphor for the incredible, unseen forces now at play. The presenter then revealed that the company's elite field exploration team had already been the primary beneficiaries of this incredible power. The top 10 recipients of the wish coupon were all members of that specialized group. He then turned his attention directly to the new hires, emphasizing their unique position. As members of the field exploration team, he declared, his voice filled with a persuasive charm, "You all stand to gain immensely." He continued, explaining that they were in a far more advantageous position to receive a wish coupon than anyone else in the entire company. It was a clear incentive, a promise of extraordinary opportunity, stirring hope and ambition. A cynical thought cut through the air, unseen by the presenter. "It's all just wordplay," a voice whispered, dismissing the grand promises as mere manipulation, a clever facade hiding a more sinister truth beneath its surface. Yet, the protagonist, observing the events with a keen eye, quietly disagreed. He saw beyond the glitzy presentation, believing that what they had just witnessed was undeniably real, not some elaborate, carefully constructed deception. He realized that despite any skepticism, the proof was undeniable. People had genuinely received the wish coupon, and its power was tangible. The implications of this reality settled heavily upon everyone in the room. An unsettling silence fell over the audience, a heavy quiet born from the clash of disbelief and undeniable proof. It was a moment of profound reflection as everyone grappled with the new reality presented before them. From the audience, a hand slowly rose, cutting through the tense quiet. It was a gesture of a profound question, one that held the weight of untold sorrow and desperate hope, seeking clarity in this bewildering new world. A man with long flowing hair asked, his voice filled with a fragile hope, "Can the wish coupon bring the dead back to life?" The question hung in the air, revealing the deep, personal stakes involved. His face, etched with a mix of longing and grief, conveyed the immense burden of his inquiry. It was a question born from a profound personal loss, a desperate plea for a miracle in the face of the impossible. The presenter smiled, acknowledging the question. "Such a thing is impossible," he began, drawing out the words. "Is precisely what you probably expected me to say." He reveled in the dramatic tension he created. He punctuated his statement with the sharp, decisive punch of his fist into his palm. It was a powerful, confident gesture, leaving no doubt that he was about to deliver an answer that would shatter all expectations. The words, "the wish coupon," appeared, emblazoned with a bold, almost aggressive energy. It was a statement of ultimate authority, a declaration of unparalleled power that demanded everyone's absolute attention and belief. The audience members looked on, their faces frozen in expressions of utter astonishment. The presenter's audacious claim had clearly pushed them beyond their limits of comprehension, leaving them speechless and completely overwhelmed. "It grants every wish of the user," the presenter proclaimed triumphantly, his voice echoing with conviction. It was the ultimate, unbelievable claim, suggesting boundless power, limited only by one's imagination. "Now then," the presenter stated, a door slowly opening behind him. "Are you ready to make your decisions?" The path forward was clear, but the choice itself was fraught with unimaginable implications for everyone present. He laid out the terms. Those unwilling to commit could leave immediately, forfeiting their employment. But for those who chose to stay, who had already been hired, a different path awaited, one requiring a deeper commitment. "Please put on the mask inside your shopping bags," he instructed. This was the next step, a physical act of commitment to their new roles, adding another layer of mystery to their unexpected employment. The protagonist looked down at the shopping bag beside him, a flicker of understanding crossing his face. "A mask? Ah," he murmured, realizing the significance of this new, unexpected requirement for his employment. He reflected on the journey that had led him to this moment, a quiet internal thought about the day finally arriving when he would receive such a peculiar item. It was a long-awaited, yet deeply unsettling fulfillment. He leaned forward, his arm extending into the shopping bag, the rustle of paper echoing slightly in the quiet room. It was a deliberate movement, preparing to embrace this strange new aspect of his job. His hand emerged, holding a sleek, dark mask, its contours designed for concealment and mystery. It was an elegant but foreboding object, an emblem of the hidden world he was about to enter, now tangible in his grasp. Tucked away, he found a business card, bearing a phone number. It was a small detail, easily overlooked, but it hinted at a crucial contact, a lifeline perhaps, within this enigmatic new organization he now served. "A business card?" the protagonist pondered, recognizing it as something the presenter had hinted at earlier. Despite its potential importance, he decided to set it aside for later, his immediate focus drawn elsewhere. A brief pause settled, creating a sense of anticipation for what was to come next. The story shifted, moving from one revelation to another, building towards a deeper understanding of the protagonist's new reality. "This is the mask," he thought, holding it up for closer inspection. The bottom text on the panel confirmed his understanding, explicitly naming the Records of Dark Exploration Department, solidifying his new affiliation. The mask, now a tangible object in his hand, seemed to hum with an unspoken history. The company name, Daydream Inc., and the field exploration team were repeated, emphasizing the secretive nature of his new role. The narration explained that these masks were an integral part of the field exploration team's fieldwork, distributed to new hires after their orientation. They were more than just equipment, they were symbols of identity. Further details explained that the masks' themes were determined by the year of entry, with specific designs like ant or mantis masks indicating entry class. It was the distinct symbol of Daydream Inc.'s enigmatic exploration team. One new hire, despite his cheerful demeanor, privately confessed a desire to abandon the job and escape. "Goodbye, everyone," he seemed to say, his internal conflict a stark contrast to his outward appearance. The glowing potion was shown again, its vibrant, swirling contents a powerful reminder of the wish coupon's seductive promise. It was a visual pause, allowing the weight of the company's offer to truly sink in. Around the room, other new hires processed the information, their faces reflecting a mixture of confusion and cautious acceptance. Each person wrestled with the gravity of their choice and the strange new path ahead. The protagonist, holding his mask, maintained his stoic expression. Even after witnessing the extraordinary demonstration, he remained firm in his decision, unwavering despite the bizarre nature of his new employment. The mask, he learned, was known as custom, designed to transform into a unique shape that perfectly suited the wearer's personality. It was a deeply personal item, reflecting the essence of each individual who wore it. He wondered what form his own mask would take, a quiet moment of introspection as he contemplated the shape that would represent his true self. The transformation was a personal revelation, a moment of self-discovery. His mask transformed, sprouting elegant dark antlers. It was a striking and unique design, a reflection of his inner self, now outwardly manifest for all to see, defining his new identity within the team. Soleum, another new hire, looked at his mask with open curiosity. "Antlers? What kind of shape is this?" she wondered, comparing it to others, noting its distinctiveness. It was clearly unlike anything she had seen. Soleum then put on her own mask, which also transformed into a unique shape, bringing a wide smile to her face. She seemed delighted by her personalized design, finding joy in this strange new tradition. The presenter's voice boomed, confirming their employment. "Once again, congratulations on joining the company," he declared. The words, "E-employment confirmed," flashed, marking the official start of their enigmatic new careers. The newly confirmed employees, now wearing their unique masks, stood together, a silent testament to their collective decision. They had accepted their roles, stepping into a world that was both thrilling and deeply uncertain. A brief, dramatic pause signaled the unfolding of another layer of their new reality. The story wasn't just about masks and wishes. There was more to uncover, more systems at play within Daydream Inc. A notification appeared on a notepad announcing records of dark exploration, real goods box, usage rights for new goods unlocked. It was an unexpected bonus, a digital reward for their commitment to the company. The protagonist reacted with a flicker of surprise, a quiet question in his mind. New goods unlocked? He pondered, trying to understand the implications of this digital reward and what it truly meant for his future. The notification emphasized the real goods box and the newly granted usage rights. It was a tangible benefit, hinting at resources and tools that would aid them in their mysterious dark exploration tasks, a practical advantage. Sitting with his mask still on, the protagonist's thoughts drifted. "When I get home," he mused, but the thought was quickly overshadowed by a deeper, more unsettling realization about his current situation. A poignant, cartoon-like image of him adrift in space appeared, reflecting his internal turmoil. "Do I even have a home here?" he wondered, the question heavy with the weight of his recent, profound displacement. A title card appeared, starkly stating, "Got dropped into a GHOST story, still gotta work." It was a chilling realization, confirming that his new job was far more perilous and supernatural than he initially understood. Soleum, ever cheerful, greeted him warmly. "Hi, Soleum," she exclaimed, her bright voice a stark contrast to the protagonist's somber thoughts, pulling him back from his internal reflections to the present moment. He responded with a polite, albeit subdued, "hello," as he pressed the elevator button. His mind was still reeling from the implications of his new reality, making casual conversation feel somewhat distant. As they waited, Soleum asked if he had also applied for company housing support. He confirmed that he had, a brief yes, revealing a shared necessity and a practical decision made in their new, uncertain circumstances. Later, he looked at his phone, which displayed a stark message. Not a valid address. It was a cold, hard confirmation that his old life, his old home, no longer existed in any recognizable form, severing his past. The full impact of his situation hit him with crushing force. His university days were the last recorded memories, and even his family contacts had been completely wiped out. He was truly alone, disconnected from everything. The image of masked figures conveyed a lingering sense of unease. The new hires, despite their official acceptance, still carried a quiet burden of uncertainty, a shared understanding of the profound changes they now faced. Their expressions, though partially hidden by their masks, suggested a collective awareness of their displacement. They were all in this strange new world together, grappling with a future entirely unlike anything they had known. The presenter's image returned, reminding him of the company benefits, specifically the housing support. The protagonist, despite his cynicism, decided he should make the most of them, a pragmatic move in his dire situation. And so, he made the practical choice, accepting the company housing support. It was a necessary step, a way to navigate his new, rootless existence, even if it felt like a concession to an unsettling reality. He recalled the presenter's sweet talk about housing near a subway station, sarcastically thinking, "Man, we're a truly great company." Yet, he knew they had just survived a death game, leaving few other options. Soleum, excitedly, shared a surprising piece of news. "Did you hear? 7 out of our 13 entry-class members received housing support, more than half." He quietly acknowledged that money was indeed the most terrifying thing of all. Despite his reservations, the company housing itself was quite nice, a small comfort in his dramatically altered circumstances. The elevator chimed, announcing its arrival at the 12th floor. It was a mundane moment, a brief pause in the extraordinary events, as he prepared to step into his new, company-provided living arrangements. Standing outside apartment 1208, he couldn't help but feel a cynical satisfaction. The housing was close to the company, ensuring they could be worked relentlessly, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Through the open door, he caught a glimpse of someone already inside the apartment, sitting casually. It was a quick, unexpected reveal, indicating he would not be alone in his new living space. The focus shifted to the person sitting inside, a man with glasses whose calm demeanor hinted at a quiet strength. This was his new roommate, a face he would soon come to know in this strange new life. The protagonist's expression remained serious, a subtle recognition dawning on his face as he took in the sight of his new roommate. There was something familiar about this person, a connection he couldn't quite place. The roommate was Baek Sahan, a name the protagonist now recognized. This was not a random assignment. There was a reason for this particular pairing, a connection waiting to be fully unveiled. Baek Sahon was the one who had asked the chilling question earlier, "Can the wish coupon bring the dead back to life?" The protagonist now realized his roommate harbored a profound, desperate wish, one that could change everything. Kim Soleum found himself trapped in an unsettling silence, sharing a new living situation with a man who seemed to defy all normal human understanding. His new roommate, Baek Sahayon, had just recovered from a severe eye injury, a brutal incident Soleum had witnessed firsthand, adding to his growing unease. The quiet tension between them stretched, thick and heavy, as Soleum tried to ignore Sahon's presence. He just wanted to retreat to his room and escape the suffocating atmosphere, hoping to distance himself from the recent violent events. Sahan, however, broke the quiet first, his voice chillingly calm. He casually noted that the company had taken care of his eye, making it clear that his recovery was swift and efficient. Soleum felt a cold dread settle in his stomach. Soleum internally insisted that simply being roommates did not obligate him to get involved with Sehehon. He desperately wanted to maintain his distance and avoid any further entanglement with the strange, unsettling man, so he started to move away. But before Soleum could fully escape, Sahang called out to him, a simple, "Hey," that stopped Soleum dead in his tracks. The word hung in the air, charged with an unspoken demand that Soleum could not ignore, filling him with new apprehension. Soleum turned back, a question forming in his mind, but Sahan's expression was unreadable. The air around them seemed to thicken, hinting at an imminent confrontation that Soleum desperately wanted to avoid at all costs. Sahan then spoke, a slight smile playing on his lips, calling Soleum a complete lunatic for his reaction. He asked if Soleum had found it enjoyable to watch someone else's eye get brutally plucked out, a question that twisted Soleum's gut. Soleum could only stare back, utterly bewildered by the question. He wondered what kind of person would even ask such a thing, realizing the depth of Sahayon's disturbing nature and the dangerous implications of his words. The silence stretched again as Soleum struggled to process Sehon's query. He felt a chilling realization dawn on him, a profound understanding of the darkness that resided within his new roommate, leaving him speechless and deeply disturbed. With an unnerving smirk, Sehon answered his own question. He confirmed that, for him, watching the gruesome incident had indeed been fun, a confession that sent shivers down Soleum's spine and confirmed his worst fears. Sahan continued, his eyes glinting with a disturbing satisfaction. He admitted he had thought the entire spectacle was genuinely entertaining, a casual declaration that solidified Soleum's perception of him as deeply unsettling and dangerous. He even expressed gratitude, claiming he had a good time thanks to Soleum. Sahon then added that it would be great if they could work together, hoping to see stuff like that again, his words a veiled threat that left Soleum horrified. Soleum stood frozen, the implications of Sahon's words sinking in. He realized the man was not just disturbed, he was actively seeking out more opportunities for violence, and he expected Soleum to be involved in some capacity. Sahon concluded his unsettling monologue by stating he would be looking forward to more good news from Soleum. He hoped that through these experiences, his corporate life could become genuinely enjoyable, leaving Soleum in a state of terror. The conversation ended, but Sahana's words echoed in Soleum's mind, a grim promise of future horrors. He felt a profound sense of dread, realizing he had just been drawn into a terrifying game he never wanted to play. Sahayan finally turned and walked away, leaving Soleum alone with his escalating fear. The brief encounter had left Soleum shaken to his core, confirming that his roommate was far more dangerous than he had initially imagined. Soleum watched him go, a cold sweat breaking out on his brow. He tried to tell himself that everything would be fine, that he could handle this. But a deep part of him knew he was utterly unprepared for what lay ahead. He realized he needed a plan, a way to protect himself from Sahan. The unsettling interaction had made it clear that passive avoidance would not be enough. He needed to actively navigate this dangerous new reality. Soleum then remembered his own desperate bluff, pretending to be on board with Sahawan's twisted desires. He hoped his false enthusiasm had been convincing enough to buy himself some time and prevent immediate retaliation. He understood that Sahayan was a master of manipulation, a universe nuisance, who twisted situations to fit his own narrative. Soleum realized that with such a person, it was always better to bluff strongly from the very beginning. His feigned willingness to work together was, of course, a complete lie. Soleum had no intention of participating in Sahan's dark games. He only sought to survive the increasingly perilous situation he found himself in. He knew the chances of new recruits actually working together were extremely low, giving him a small window of opportunity. Soleum just needed to fool Sahon long enough to ensure he wouldn't get stabbed in his sleep. As he processed the disturbing encounter, Soleum recalled the new company housing benefits. It was almost ironic that such a dangerous living situation came with such pristine furniture and incredible weekly cleaning services. The company offered free housing support, complete with brand new furniture. They even provided a private bathroom and a weekly deep cleaning service for a mere 100,000 won, a surprisingly generous perk for a new employee. Soleum also found a welcome gift on his desk, premium snacks and new office supplies. It was a thoughtful gesture, a stark contrast to the terrifying reality of his personal life, highlighting the surreal nature of his new job. Among the office supplies, he discovered a small, unassuming diary. Soleum picked it up, a strange feeling washing over him, wondering what kind of entries might fill its pages in this bizarre new corporate world. He also noticed a strange smile sticker tucked away with his new items. Its hastily made appearance seemed out of place among the professional supplies, sparking a flicker of curiosity within him. Soleum opened his company tablet, navigating to the internal wiki to research the mysterious sticker. He needed to understand what this peculiar item was and if it held any significance within the strange company culture. The wiki entry revealed the smile sticker was a bribery item that manipulated affinity, creating a weak connection towards the user. It had been completely discarded due to its controversial power, causing a massive internal flame war. The wiki contributors had argued fiercely over the sticker's immense power, eventually deciding to delete the item from the company records altogether. Soleum realized he might be holding the only existing sticker left in the entire company. The sticker's usage condition was for regular employees or higher, which meant it had just unlocked for him. Soleum understood that the company system seemed to spit out new goods whenever he got promoted or changed departments. A chill ran down his spine as he looked at the plain notepad. This entire company, with its strange items and even stranger employees, felt less like a job and more like an unfolding ghost story he was unwillingly part of. He slumped in his chair, running a hand through his hair, the weight of everything pressing down on him. The sticker might help him survive, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he should never have been dragged into this world at all. That night, Soleum was plagued by vivid nightmares. The unsettling encounter with Sahan and the bizarre revelations about his new company had deeply disturbed him, stealing his peace and leaving him restless. He tossed and turned in his bed, the horrifying images of his day replaying in his mind. The stress of his new job and his dangerous roommate had already begun to take a severe toll on his mental well-being even before his first day. The sheer volume of crazy things that had happened in just one day overwhelmed him. Soleum groaned, desperate for sleep, but his mind refused to quiet, trapped in a loop of fear and anxiety about his future. He continued to struggle through the night, unable to find any true rest. Every attempt to drift off was met with a fresh wave of unsettling thoughts, leaving him exhausted and dreading the start of his work week. On Monday morning, Soleum arrived at the Daydream Inc. building, looking utterly drained. His colleague, a kind woman, immediately noticed his haggard appearance, asking if he was okay with genuine concern. She then gently inquired if he had not slept well, her words confirming Soleum's visible exhaustion. He admitted to suffering from nightmares all weekend, the stress of his new life already taking a significant toll on him. As they rode the elevator, Soleum's colleague mentioned she was getting off at the 10th floor. She encouraged him to hang in there, offering a sympathetic smile as they both prepared for their day. Soleum tried to reciprocate her optimism, affirming that he could do it, despite the overwhelming sense of dread he felt. He watched her exit the elevator on the 10th floor, leaving him alone as it continued its ascent. The field exploration team, his assigned department, occupied floors 10 through 15. Soleum watched the floor numbers tick by, each digit increasing his anxiety as he neared his destination. The elevator finally stopped, revealing the number 13 prominently displayed above the door. Soleum stared at it, a shiver running down his spine, convinced that even the number itself felt like a terrible omen for his future. Kim Soleum found himself standing in the unfamiliar office of the Abyss Transit Authority, a place he now belonged to after successfully passing what they called the Death Survival. It was a strange, unsettling name for an entry exam, one that made him wonder about the nature of this new workplace. His new colleagues introduced themselves with a similar casualness to the bizarre company name. First was Deputy Unhaje, a sharp-eyed woman with striking blue hair who offered a direct welcome to Team D, her smile a little too wide. Then came Supervisor Park Min-song, a man with a friendly, easygoing demeanor. He smiled warmly, extending a hand in greeting, and encouraged Soleum to relax and not be so formal in his new role. Soleum, still a little stiff, offered his own introduction, stating his name clearly. Min-song then made a light-hearted joke, suggesting that if Soleum managed to last a year, he would easily become a supervisor himself, almost in no time at all. But the humor quickly turned dark as Min-song casually added that Soleum might, of course, die before reaching that point. Deputy Haji immediately shot a sharp, disapproving look at her supervisor, clearly unhappy with his morbid jest. Min-song simply shrugged, maintaining his nonchalant attitude, and suggested that quitting was always an option if the job proved too much. He reminded Soleum there were countless other professions available in the world. Soleum, however, harbored a deeper understanding. He knew, with a weary certainty, that no matter what path he chose, he seemed destined to inevitably get entangled in some form of a ghost story, a recurring theme in his life. Min-song, shifting the topic, brought up Soleum's impressive entrance exam results, noting that he was the top recruit. He expressed curiosity, inviting the new hire to share details of his achievements. Soleum, ever modest, simply attributed his success to hard work. Deputy Haje, however, scoffed at the simplicity of his answer, pointing out that if effort alone was enough, everyone would be attending Seoul National University. With the team leader apparently out on fieldwork, Min-song advised Soleum to just make himself comfortable for the time being. The atmosphere in the office was calm, but a strange, old-fashioned radio suddenly crackled to life. The radio announced a live traffic forecast for Seoul, its voice echoing with an eerie, disembodied quality. Soleum watched, a flicker of apprehension in his eyes, as the device seemed to operate on its own accord. The forecast itself was unsettling, describing heavy rains and treacherous road conditions, a stark contrast to the clear, sunny skies outside. It spoke of chaotic traffic and reckless drivers, painting a grim, impossible picture. Soleum's gaze sharpened, a dawning realization crossing his face. He understood then, this wasn't a weather report at all. This radio, with its bizarre, contradictory broadcast, was unmistakably a ghost story. Min-song, observing Soleum's quick deduction, commented on his new recruit's perceptiveness. Deputy Haje, in turn, added that Soleum was sharp as a ghost, a compliment that felt both apt and a little concerning. Min-song clarified that this particular phenomenon was merely a twilight-grade darkness, a relatively harmless occurrence. He explained it functioned much like a daily horoscope, a benign urban legend. The radio's display then showed a detailed entry for Hello Traffic Info, identifying it as a ghost story from the records of dark exploration and giving it an identification code. It described the bizarre radio that offered daily horoscopes through traffic conditions. Minsong, seemingly reading Soleum's thoughts, teased him about, probably wondering what the difference was between an urban legend and a darkness, or if he was some kind of otaku for such things. Soleum quickly denied the accusation, a slight flush on his face. He wasn't thinking anything of the sort, at least not in the way Minsong implied, but the supervisor remained unconvinced. Minsong, with a mischievous glint in his eye, then presented Soleum with a tablet. He declared that he had prepared something special for new recruits like him, something he felt Soleum absolutely needed to see. He instructed Soleum to watch the video on the tablet all the way through, emphasizing the importance of absorbing every detail. The screen flickered to life, displaying glitchy, pixelated graphics before the training video began. The video opened with an explosion of bright colors and enthusiastic cartoon mascots. It was a starkly cheerful and somewhat jarring welcome to Daydream Inc's field exploration team, full of dreams and passion. The presentation then shifted, posing a direct question: what kind of company is Daydream Inc? It promised to reveal the true nature of their mysterious organization, sparking Soleum's intense curiosity. The video continued, proudly proclaiming Daydream Inc to be a magic company that specialized in creating literal magic potions. It was a fantastical claim, delivered with absolute conviction by the animated figures. It then explained how supernatural and bizarre phenomena were still very much a part of modern society. Urban legends were not just tales, they were becoming a chilling reality, even within people's own homes. The video listed examples, such as a fan that could kill you if left running in a closed room while you slept, and the mysterious unlisted floors found in elevators, each more unsettling than the last. It also mentioned the truly terrifying, like the urban legend of the Red Mask, a figure of pure dread. These were all oh-so-scary urban legends that were now manifesting in the real world. Daydream Inc. proudly stated that it managed all these diverse urban legends, not to combat them, but to harness their power. They harvested dream essence from these phenomena. This dream essence, the video revealed, was then used to create powerful magic potions that grant wishes. It was an astonishing revelation, suggesting an incredible blend of danger and fantastical opportunity. One of the mascots, a curious red creature named Mr. Yong, questioned what exactly dream essence was. The other mascot, a yellow deer-like figure, was ready with the answer. The yellow mascot explained that dream essence was Daydream Inc's single most important resource, the very foundation of their operations. It was a vital, potent substance that fueled their magical endeavors. The video then celebrated the wonderful people who were responsible for gathering this precious resource, the field exploration team. They were the brave individuals who ventured into the unknown. A vibrant, explosive montage followed, showcasing the exploits of the field exploration team. It was a heroic depiction, filled with action and daring feats, designed to inspire and excite new recruits. The video explained that gathering dream essence, a magical ingredient obtainable only from supernatural phenomena, was the primary mission of the team. It was a task that required courage and skill. Soleum, watching the video, couldn't help but notice the careful wording. He wondered if they had deliberately softened the terms, changing ghost story to urban legend, to make the terrifying reality sound less intimidating. The video then shed its cheerful facade, revealing the true nature of Daydream Inc. It was, in essence, a clandestine organization that manufactured and distributed transcendent potions. The dream essence, previously presented as a magical ingredient, was explicitly identified as the main component harvested directly from ghost stories. The implications of this truth were far more sinister than the initial presentation. With enough dream essence, Daydream Inc could craft anything, from a cure for drug addiction to an elixir of immortality. These were transcendent potions, capable of manipulating reality itself. The revelation deepened the mystery, making Soleum question the true power and reach of these concoctions. Who, he wondered, would be the primary buyers for such reality-altering substances? The answer, delivered without hesitation, confirmed his suspicions: the political elite and the upper class. At its core, Daydream Inc was a business, driven by profit and influence, not just magic. The training video concluded with a direct command: new recruits were to grab their dream essence collectors and bravely enter the darkness. It was a stark call to action, signaling the end of the introductory phase. The screen went black, leaving Soleum with the weight of the information. The cheerful mascots and bright colors were replaced by the cold reality of Daydream Inc's true, profit-driven mission. Minsong then looked at Soleum, a knowing expression on his face, and asked if he had enjoyed the video. Soleum, still processing the sheer magnitude of what he had just learned, could only nod slightly. He admitted that it had been impressive, a vast understatement for the shocking truths revealed. Minshong then explained that the company officially referred to these phenomena as darkness. He advised Soleum to adopt the term if he wished to avoid being labeled a ghost story otaku. Soleum, however, internally mused that even if he did, he would likely just be considered a regular otaku instead. He glanced at a small gauge, noticing that the dream essence was slowly filling up, a silent timer for his impending mission. The reality of his new job was settling in, heavy and unavoidable. Minson then stood, signaling a shift in the conversation. He announced that since Soleum had seemingly skimmed through the manuals, it was time for them to head out for an exploration. Soleum's eyes widened slightly in surprise. He hadn't anticipated such immediate action. It was his very first day of work, and he was already being sent on an exploration into the unknown. Minsong, seeing his reaction, clarified that his task for the afternoon would merely be a light darkness exploration, attempting to ease any apprehension. Yet, the phrase itself carried an inherent contradiction. Deputy Hage then handed Soleum a sleek, metallic device, a dream essence collector. It was a portable liquid storage container designed to fill up as he navigated through a darkness. Hage stressed the importance of the device, warning him to be extremely careful not to lose it. Each collector was individually numbered, making its disappearance a significant problem. Soleum mentally likened the consequence to losing a bullet casing, a small but critical item with serious repercussions. He understood the gravity of Hage's warning, accepting the collector with a firm grip. Hage then advised him to make wearing a mask a routine before entering any darkness. It was a crucial safety measure, a barrier against whatever horrors awaited him. She then asked to see his own mask, eager to inspect his choice. Soleum reached into his pocket, pulling out a peculiar mask with small, dark antlers. Hage looked at it, a hint of amusement in her eyes. She questioned if it was meant to be a deer, and then, more specifically, if it was a roe deer, a curious choice for a protective mask. She quickly decided on roe deer, rationalizing that they were supposedly stronger than regular deer, a statement punctuated by a dramatic boom sound effect. Soleum, still looking confused, put on the mask. Hage then directed his attention to a screen, displaying an internet post that read, "Getting 20 million won for doing this vs just living." It was a balance game, presenting an impossible choice. The post detailed a horrifying scenario, playing hide-and-seek with a ghost for 3 days in an isolated convenience store. It was an extreme test of courage, offering a substantial reward for survival. For reference, the post included a terrifying image of the ghost, a nightmarish entity with multiple limbs and glowing eyes. Soleum recoiled, a choked sound escaping him as he stared at the monstrous depiction. The image lingered in his mind, its grotesque features burned into his memory. This was the entity he might soon face, a chilling reality that far surpassed any urban legend. Soleum, his voice barely a whisper, questioned the true nature of the post. Was this just a hypothetical scenario or a direct precursor to his mission? He needed answers, but the air remained thick with dread. Kim Soleum, a recruit in a peculiar organization, found himself trapped in a harrowing cycle. Each failure in his dark exploration meant a complete reset, returning him to the same starting point. He was back in the eerie convenience store, the digital clock stubbornly displaying midnight, a chilling reminder of his unending ordeal. He had faced this countless times, the same oppressive darkness, the same lurking terror. Frustration gnawed at him, pushing him to the brink of despair. "You want me to do this crap for 3 days?" he cried out internally, his voice raw with disbelief and exhaustion. The thought of enduring such a prolonged nightmare was unbearable. He wished for a swift end, a release from the relentless torment. "Just kill me instead," he pleaded silently, his mind reeling from the sheer impossibility of his task, the endless loop, adding to his torment. There was no guarantee this ordeal would even conclude in 3 days. If he made a single mistake, if he was caught by the lurking entity, everything would simply reset. He would be right back at the beginning. The clock, a cold digital display, mockingly reset to 12,000, symbolizing his inescapable fate. It was a constant reminder of the time he had already lost and the countless hours he might still be forced to relive. This terrifying prospect filled him with dread. Soleum, who openly admitted his own cowardice, feared he would lose his mind long before the 3 days even had a chance to pass. The repetition was a torture in itself. He knew he couldn't continue like this. The current approach was futile, leading only to endless restarts and mounting despair. Soleum desperately needed to find an alternative, a different strategy to break free from this relentless loop. The dark convenience store loomed around him, silent and menacing. He decided his first move should be to find a secure place to think, to gather his scattered thoughts away from immediate danger. He slipped quietly under the counter. The space beneath the counter was cramped and dark, offering a temporary illusion of safety. He held his breath, listening intently for any sound, any sign of movement. The air was thick with an unsettling stillness, a prelude to terror. Suddenly, a horrifying face materialized from the shadows, its eyes wide and vacant, its features distorted by decay. It was the ghost, its presence an immediate and visceral confirmation of his worst fears. Soleum's heart pounded. He froze, his hand clamped over his mouth to stifle any sound. The ghost's grotesque form lingered in the darkness, its long dark hair trailing around it like tendrils of despair. Its gaze was fixed, unblinking, utterly chilling. A cold dread washed over him. Soleum knew, with a sinking certainty, that this entity had been aware of his presence all along. It wasn't merely searching, it was playing with him, toying with its prey in this dark, twisted game. He realized that any significant movement, any sudden action, would instantly betray his position. The ghost seemed to possess an uncanny awareness of its surroundings, making even the slightest rustle a fatal error. Checking his phone for information was out of the question. The smallest flicker of light from its screen would be like a beacon in the suffocating darkness, immediately giving away his hiding spot to the ever-watchful entity. With all external tools rendered useless, Soleum understood he could only rely on one thing, his own memory. The countless failed explorations, the detailed logs of past anomalies, held the key to his survival. He began sifting through his mental archives, recalling various dark exploration records. These were accounts of previous missions, detailing encounters with crazed doctors, cannibal clowns, and serial killers in different haunted locations. His mind scrolled through a grim list: a fast food restaurant, a crosswalk, a mountain cabin, even the sewers infested with swarms of bugs. Each record represented a harrowing escape, a testament to the unpredictable nature of these challenges. Soleum pressed his fingers to his temple, trying to focus amidst the overwhelming pressure. The weight of his predicament bore down on him, but he knew there had to be an answer hidden within his vast collection of stored experiences. Then, a specific memory surfaced, a flicker of hope in the suffocating darkness. He recalled a particular ghost story, an exploration that had deviated significantly from its expected course, presenting a crucial anomaly. It was a case that had unfolded entirely differently than anyone had anticipated. The standard rules of the dark exploration seemed to bend, offering a unique insight into how these supernatural events could be manipulated. He remembered the specifics: an exploration team in an abandoned hospital meant to survive for 12 hours. Yet, their ordeal extended far beyond that, dragging on for 16 hours and 11 minutes before finally concluding. The reason for this unusual extension was a critical detail: a cut phone line. It had prevented a crucial shift change notification from reaching the doctor, thereby keeping the ghost story unnervingly active and prolonged. Soleum mentally replayed the sequence of events. The phone line was eventually restored, the call was made, and only then did the doctor disappear, marking the official end of the ghost story. The timing was exact. He repeated the words in his mind, urging himself to grasp the full implications. "Remember, remember," he muttered to himself, the crucial piece of information just beyond his immediate reach, a frustrating whisper in his thoughts. His brow furrowed in concentration. He needed to pinpoint the exact detail, the small but significant factor that had disrupted the narrative flow. So, what was it, he wondered, desperately trying to bring it into focus. The answer clicked into place. The team had failed to receive the notification that the doctor's shift had ended. This seemingly minor detail was the trigger, the specific condition required for the ghost story to conclude. He recalled the exact time: 3 hours and 12 minutes into the exploration, a recruit had accidentally severed the counter's phone line. This seemingly small act had profound consequences for the duration of their terrifying ordeal. Because of the cut line, the ghost story refused to end at its scheduled 12-hour mark. The sun did not rise, and the doctor's shift continued indefinitely, plunging the team into an extended, harrowing nightmare. It was only at 16 hours and 9 minutes that the phone line was successfully restored. Immediately, the phone rang, a long-awaited signal breaking the oppressive silence that had held them captive for so long. 2 minutes later, at 16 hours and 11 minutes, the doctor finally answered the shift change call. With that, the terrifying entity promptly vanished, and the ghost story was officially completed, its hold finally broken. This particular story was a crucial anomaly, a clear demonstration that the time within a ghost story could be extended. More importantly, it highlighted the existence of a specific trigger required to end the narrative. Soleum now understood. If the story had extended because a trigger didn't activate, then, conversely, he could potentially shorten the ordeal by activating the trigger early. This was the key to his escape. He moved with renewed purpose, but the ghost remained, its presence a chilling reminder of his constant surveillance. It seemed aware of his every thought, every calculated move, making his every action fraught with danger. He knew he couldn't stay hidden forever. The ghost was toying with him, enjoying its power. Soleum clenched his fists, resolving to confront the situation head-on. He had to get out of this hiding spot and run. Even if he was caught again, he refused to succumb to learned helplessness. He would not let the endless restarts break his spirit. This time, he would fight back. He would seek his freedom with every fiber of his being. The ghost stood menacingly in front of the counter, blocking his path. Soleum took a deep breath, his heart pounding. He formulated a desperate plan. If he could just step to the side, perhaps he could slip past it. He lunged, a burst of frantic energy, but it was futile. The ghost moved with impossible speed, its shadowy form intercepting him instantly. Soleum was caught, his escape attempt ending in bitter, familiar failure. The blow was devastating, both physically and mentally. He lay there, defeated, the cycle of pain and frustration overwhelming him once more. "Just kill me," he whispered, his voice broken, ready for it all to simply end. Then, the familiar word flashed across his vision: restart. The world dissolved, only to reform, pulling him back to the very beginning. The convenience store, 12:30 a.m., the same unending nightmare. His earlier resolve wavered. 3 days of this? It felt like an eternity, an impossible task for someone like him. He questioned if he truly had the strength to endure such a prolonged and terrifying ordeal. But then, determination hardened his gaze. He would not give up. He had to find that trigger, activate it ahead of schedule, and force the ghost story to conclude earlier than its programmed end time. He considered what common events in a convenience store might be set 3 days in the future. Pre-stocking new items seemed too complex, too unpredictable to be the definitive trigger he sought. Then, a more intuitive idea struck him, something universally present in every convenience store. He remembered the simple, yet critical, detail found on almost every product: expiration dates. He frantically searched the shelves. If he could find a product with an expiration date exactly 3 days from now, he could manipulate the system. He spotted a soupy Hamburg steak with the perfect date. He quickly accessed the POS terminal, planning to change the system date to 3 days in the future and register the item for disposal. The process was straightforward, yet the tension in the air was palpable. As he inputted the new date, a chilling presence materialized behind him. The ghost, its form now more defined and menacing, stood silently, observing his every move. Fear gripped Soleum, but he couldn't stop. He forced himself to ignore the terrifying entity, to push past his paralyzing fear. His fingers trembled, but he kept them moving, knowing this was his only chance. He had to finish it no matter the cost. With a final, desperate press of a button, the system confirmed, registered for disposal. The world around him shimmered, the oppressive darkness giving way to a blinding, brilliant light. The ghost story was over. Back in the ordinary world, his colleagues discussed their work, seemingly unaware of his ordeal. They spoke of a dream essence collector and a minimum clear time of 3 days for ghost stories. Soleum had filled it. His clear time, 1 hour and 24 minutes. The real challenge had just begun. A new recruit, Kim Soleum, faced a daunting initiation at his company, a solo mission into a ghost story. His senior colleagues, a blue-haired man and a brown-haired man, closely discussed his progress. They assumed this mission would unfold over the usual 3 days, a fairly relaxed duration for such an assignment. This time frame, they believed, ensured he wouldn't face major issues due to food supply or other practical concerns. This intense initiation was Team D's unique way of testing recruits, designed to quickly weed out those who lacked the firm resolve necessary for their dangerous work. The team found it crucial, as it prevented new members from pointlessly risking their lives in the field later on. Many previous recruits had quit because of this rigorous process, causing frequent trouble with the Human Resources Department. Despite the administrative headaches, the team believed the initiation was absolutely necessary. They saw it as a painful but vital measure, determined to avoid the profound sorrow of watching a valued coworker die due to insufficient mental fortitude. As they observed the new recruit, they noted Kim Soleum's unusual calmness, a striking contrast to the panic often displayed by previous candidates. He truly seemed extraordinary, an anomaly among his peers, seemingly unfazed by the terrifying nature of their daily job. Their work, after all, involved routinely entering urban legends, a reality that typically unsettled even the most seasoned individuals. Soleum's stoicism deeply impressed his deputy, who interpreted it as a clear sign of firm resolve and a strong, unyielding heart. These were the very qualities deemed essential for surviving and thriving within their perilous department. The deputy reasoned that any true coward, lacking such inner strength, would never have even made it through the rigorous probation period in the first place. Soleum, having successfully completed his probation, had already earned the coveted title of top recruit. His seniors readily agreed that he was performing quite well, demonstrating a remarkable aptitude for the job. However, they also observed a minor oversight. He hadn't taken any notes during his initial training sessions. They charitably attributed this to his inexperience, assuming it was likely his very first job and he simply didn't know better. They decided to gently nudge him, emphasizing the crucial importance of taking detailed notes for their work. They planned to clearly explain that their lives literally depended on retaining every piece of vital information. They intended to remind him to diligently write things down, ensuring he could review and understand the information better later on. They firmly believed he couldn't possibly have known such intricate operational details beforehand. The blue-haired senior, lighting a cigarette, inhaled slowly as he considered the new recruit. The brown-haired senior, his expression thoughtful, nodded in agreement. Their plan felt sound, a small but necessary guidance for their promising newcomer. The deputy, his eyes narrowed slightly, continued to smoke, pondering the implications of Soleum's unique demeanor. He was impressed, but also a little wary, as if sensing something deeper beneath the surface of the recruit's calm. His colleagues, meanwhile, continued their discussion, their voices a low murmur. They had seen many recruits come and go, but none had possessed such an unsettling blend of youth and apparent unflappability. The blue-haired senior, exhaling a plume of smoke, thought about the challenges ahead. He hoped Soleum's resolve would hold, that his impressive start wasn't just a fleeting spark in the darkness they routinely navigated. He considered the nature of their work, where urban legends became terrifying realities, and how easily a moment of weakness could lead to disaster. Soleum's apparent fearlessness was both a blessing and a potential vulnerability. He recalled past recruits who had broken under the pressure, their initial bravado crumbling into panic. Soleum seemed different, almost too calm, as if he possessed an inner knowledge that others lacked. The deputy simply watched, his expression unreadable. He had witnessed many things in his career, many pretenses and many genuine acts of courage. Time would tell which category Kim Soleum truly belonged to. Then, something utterly unexpected and bewildering happened. The brown-haired senior's tablet, which had been diligently tracking Soleum's mission progress, suddenly began to vibrate violently. He stared at it in confusion. He wondered why the device was acting up so suddenly, its insistent buzzing a stark interruption to the quiet office. A moment later, Kim Soleum himself appeared, standing before them, calmly declaring his astonishing return. His seniors were utterly dumbfounded, their faces a mixture of shock and disbelief. A ghost story mission that was explicitly designed to take at least 3 full days had been cleared by the new recruit in just 1 single hour. The brown-haired senior, reeling from the suddenness of it all, felt a jolt of alarm, convinced he was going to have a heart attack from the sheer shock. Soleum, however, remained completely composed amidst their bewilderment. He calmly began to explain his incredible feat, stating that he had simply fast-forwarded the time. His colleagues listened, their expressions a mix of awe and incredulity, as he detailed his unconventional approach. Soleum reasoned that since there was a predetermined time limit for the mission, there must inherently be a specific event within the ghost story that actively determined when time had passed. This was his key insight. By strategically using the expiration dates on the food items provided for the mission, he deliberately triggered this crucial time-passed event 3 days in advance. This ingenious manipulation effectively ended the ghost story early. He then claimed, with a straight face, that he had come out so quickly purely because he was scared, an assertion his seniors found incredibly hard to believe, calling him a blatant liar for his obvious fabrication. They then asked him, still processing the unbelievable speed of his return, how much money he had received for clearing the ghost story. They explained that it was customary for employees to get paid for such missions. Soleum, maintaining his casual demeanor, replied that he had received 10 million won. His blue-haired senior, feeling a surge of generosity due to Soleum's impressive, record-breaking feat, made an unexpected offer. He told Soleum to keep all of the money, despite the company usually taking half of the earnings. He assured the new recruit that they, as his seniors, would competently handle any administrative aftermath using their seasoned know-how. Soleum, however, harbored a secret. He actually knew he had earned 20 million won, not 10. He had initially planned to be completely honest about the full amount, but his conscience wavered in that moment. When his senior generously offered him the full 10 million without questioning, a silent internal struggle ensued. He ultimately decided to keep silent, the temptation of the extra funds proving too great to resist. With the mission now successfully completed, it was time for the next crucial task, registering his points for the employee welfare mall. Soleum navigated the system, his expression thoughtful, contemplating his next move. He registered his points for clearing the Shade F grade mission alone, officially earning 100 points. He then began to browse the welfare mall, curious about what desirable items he could purchase with his newfound earnings. The selection of items, he observed, wasn't bad at all, offering practical goods like a robot vacuum cleaner for 100 points. He scrolled through the options, his interest piqued by the possibilities. Then, his eyes landed on a particular item, a wish coupon, priced at a staggering 500,000 points. The sheer magnitude of the number instantly caught his attention, prompting a quick mental calculation. He quickly calculated that clearing a Shade FI zone alone every single day would take him an unbearable 15 years to accumulate that many points. The thought was instantly dismissed. That simply wouldn't do. He then considered the alternative, ranking up to a higher grade. A grade B mission, for instance, awarded a more substantial 10,000 points per clear. This seemed like a more viable, albeit still challenging path. However, he wouldn't be going in alone for such high-grade missions. If 3 people went in together, each would receive 3,333 points. He crunched the numbers again, a growing sense of dread settling over him. To accumulate 500,000 points, he would have to clear grade B missions an astonishing 150 times. The thought horrified him, a cold dread creeping into his heart as the reality of the task sank in. He knew the civilian survival rate for grade B missions was a mere 2%. He felt an overwhelming certainty that he would die long before he ever reached 150 attempts. He desperately needed a shortcut. His mind raced, searching for any alternative, any loophole in the system that could bypass such an impossible grind. He knew there had to be another way, a hidden path to achieve his goal. He had correctly registered his points, but his thoughts were already far beyond the standard procedures, seeking unconventional solutions. He noticed some strange, intriguing items casually placed on his team leader's desk nearby. His seniors explained that it was, indeed, their team leader's desk, and he was currently out on field duty. They casually warned Soleum not to accidentally break the monitor, a subtle hint at its value. Soleum internally noted that this company, which literally farmed potions from ghost stories, clearly operated outside the bounds of common sense. He realized that conventional rules simply did not apply here. He understood he needed an unconventional countermeasure to survive and thrive in this bizarre environment, and he was fully prepared to utilize any available shortcuts. His gaze sharpened on something specific. He spotted a small pink post-it note stuck to the desk. It conspicuously displayed team leader Lee Jae-hyun's ID and password in plain sight, a post-it note with absolutely zero security awareness. He instantly decided to log into the employee welfare mall using this conveniently provided ID. He typed in the password from the note, but the system promptly returned an error message. It didn't match. He had, however, anticipated this level of difficulty, knowing that such an obvious shortcut wouldn't be entirely straightforward. He calmly recalled that a capital letter was required for passwords during the initial sign-up process. So, with a flash of insight, he simply changed the first letter of the password on the note to a capital letter and tried again. A moment later, the system confirmed his access. It worked. This quiet triumph was a timid celebration, as he had just stumbled upon something far more significant than he initially realized. He had gained entry to a hidden part of the company network. At Daydream Inc., there were exclusive listings, invisible to regular employees, only accessible to section chiefs and above. This clandestine marketplace was colloquially known as the Alien Shop among the higher ranks. Among the various eccentric aliens appearing in the company's records of dark exploration, some were known to sell incredibly useful, albeit dangerous, goods directly to Earthlings. Communication was cumbersome, but the benefits immense. These particular aliens specifically targeted Daydream Inc. employees as their primary customer base. To facilitate their illicit trade, They had cleverly planted illegal advertisement links deep within the company's internal network. The access method to this hidden shop was surprisingly simple, almost deceptively so. While casually clicking around the main welfare mall, if one were to press the back button 5 times in a row, the secret shop would suddenly appear. It might have looked shabby, a stark contrast to the polished main site, but it was absolutely brimming with potential. Soleum's eyes widened as he browsed the extraordinary items on offer, a new world opening before him. Through this hidden shop, Soleum uncovered a shocking truth about his employment when clearing a Shade 5 grade darkness. The company only paid employees 50% of the incidental profits. The other half was simply taken. Even worse, for the very first darkness mission assigned to a new recruit, the company callously took everything, leaving the newcomer with nothing. Soleum, who thought he was getting a fair deal, now understood the shocking depth of their deception. He then looked at a plushie he had received as a gift, supposedly because it resembled him. He had initially found it cute, but now saw it as a symbol of the company's manipulative facade, a hollow gesture. Soleum's initial calm was merely a facade, a necessary defense mechanism in a world far more predatory than he first imagined. The true nature of Daydream Inc., shrouded in corporate deceit, was finally coming into full view. His path ahead promised to be far more complicated and dangerous than any ghost story. Kim Soleum, a diligent section chief, navigated a world where the mundane often twisted into the bizarre. One day, he stumbled upon a peculiar internet ad looking like a relic from an older era. This banner, he knew, was no ordinary advertisement. It was, in fact, a promotional ransomware for a shopping mall, exclusively visible to those of his rank or higher, a curious detail that immediately piqued his interest. The ad promised incredible sales. It offered discounts up to 80% off, a tempting offer in any circumstance. It cleverly played on his daily routine, teasing him with questions about boredom at work, desires for greater strength, and the allure of owning cool stuff. The banner beckoned him to click, urging him to go straight to the site by simply clicking the sketchy image, an invitation that felt both exciting and slightly illicit. Soleum, however, was not one to rush into things. He, ever cautious, realized that accessing such a site from his company computer would undoubtedly leave a traceable record. He was far too careful to make such a rookie mistake, especially with something so unusual. Instead, he decided on a different, more discreet approach to satisfy his curiosity. He would simply save the URL for later and access the mysterious shopping mall from the privacy and security of his own home. He leaned back in his office chair, phone in hand, his expression thoughtful. He made a mental note of the address, ensuring he wouldn't forget it, already planning his evening. Later that day, at home, Soleum manually typed in the URL he had saved earlier. The anticipation built as the page slowly began to load, revealing its unique interface. The site loaded with a startlingly tacky design, full of glitching visuals and an outdated, almost pixelated aesthetic. It proclaimed itself the cosmic shopping mall, with an equally strange tagline. The tagline declared it was XCOM Cleave from Outer Space, adding another layer of bizarre charm to the already peculiar site. Soleum clicked the prominent button to see the available items. The entire experience felt incredibly amateurish and low budget, almost like a relic from a forgotten internet era. He even noticed it wasn't optimized for mobile, a glaring oversight in this day and age. Despite the tacky appearance, Soleum reminded himself not to let it fool him. He knew better than to judge a book by its cover, especially in his line of work. The items they sold were truly extraordinary, drawn from the very ghost stories he dealt with daily. He scrolled through the list: vampire cutlery, broader walkie-talkie, We Help, Alice picnic set, and the silver coin snake. He recognized more than half of these items from his encounters, making them all feel both familiar and deeply unsettling. This was not just a strange website, it was a portal to potential power. Soleum resolved to make a smart choice with the 20 million won he had acquired from a previous ghost story. He needed items that would genuinely benefit him. He considered the items he knew well: the cutlery, the walkie-talkie, and the picnic set. Each had a specific, often dangerous, utility in the world of ghost stories. The We Help item was far too expensive, priced at 6,066 won, well beyond his budget, so he quickly dismissed it. Practicality was paramount in his choices. The Alice picnic set, priced at 11,999,999 won, temporarily altered the effects of other items. It promised to double them with a drink and halve them with a cookie. He thought this set would be incredibly useful to carry around for future ghost story encounters, offering crucial versatility. It was a strategic asset, not just a novelty. Then there was the silver coin snake, originally 19,9999999 mun, now on a significant sale for 4,999999991. Seeing the massive discount, Soleum felt a good feeling about it. He recognized it as a solid investment, a rare opportunity to acquire valuable assets at a fraction of their usual cost. This was more than just shopping, it was strategy. In this world, various types of currency from ghost stories could be exchanged for cash through specific organizations. This was a known, if secretive, pathway to real wealth. Buying the silver coin snake on sale now would surely turn into a neat sum of cash later, a promising return on his investment. He was convinced this purchase would definitely pay off. He believed that this investment would pay off someday, a conviction that settled deep within him. He wasn't gambling, he told himself, but making a cold, rational judgment. A moment of reflection followed as he contemplated the other items. Why didn't he buy the rest? His mind questioned. There were practical reasons, rooted in his specific circumstances. The vampire cutlery, for instance, was a weapon for fighting ghosts directly, a tool for confrontation. But Soleum couldn't use it himself. He wasn't a direct combatant. And anyway, he mused, could one even suck blood from a ghost? The idea seemed absurd, further cementing his decision to pass on the cutlery. It was not for him. The broader walkie-talkie also presented a problem. It would be incredibly awkward to persuade his superior to carry it around, raising uncomfortable questions he couldn't answer. Moreover, it would inevitably cause trouble if they asked where he got it. How could he possibly tell them he bought it by logging in with the boss's ID? It was too risky. So, in the end, the Alice picnic set and the silver coin snake were the best choices for now. They were practical, strategic, and wouldn't raise any red flags. He had acquired them, and as they settled into his inventory alongside his memorial grip talk and smile sticker, Soleum felt a strange, quiet satisfaction. It was a good haul. Buying fictional items in real life actually felt pretty good, a unique thrill. The system, in its own quirky way, even noted that Soleum truly enjoyed shopping. A small caveat, however, was noted. Fictional ghosts came along as a free gift. This was the inherent downside to dealing with such extraordinary spectral merchandise. The next day, Soleum found himself back at work, preparing for the next assignment. Today, he and his colleagues, Badger and Falcon, were heading into a Dusk D-grade ghost story. Badger reassured him, saying it was about the same level as the new employee orientation, so there would be no problems. Soleum recalled the PTSD from his own orientation. He confidently stated he had already memorized the entire manual for this new mission, leaving no room for error. His meticulous preparation was always his strength. Falcon complimented him, saying the team leader would find him incredibly easy to work with, praising his efficiency. Soleum felt a slight swelling of pride at the compliment. Soleum realized he still hadn't met the team leader of Team D, a curious absence. He assumed he would soon, as they were expected in the afternoon for the mission. However, Falcon received the call with unexpected news. The team leader was still out in the field, unable to join them for the mission. This changed everything. This meant they would be going in by themselves, just the three of them, Soleum, Badger, and the newly recruited Roe Deer. The mission suddenly felt more daunting. Soleum was stunned, a sense of dread slowly creeping in. He felt a pang of resentment, realizing he was being punished for scoring that 20 million won from the convenience store ghost story. He looked down at the manual, the Tuesday quiz show, Dusk D-grade, manual Wansa sheet. A chilling thought struck him, one that made his blood run cold. He had never read about this specific ghost story in the records of dark exploration. This was an unknown and uncharted territory for him, despite his meticulous preparation. He hadn't expected to enter an unknown ghost story so soon, feeling a jolt of anxiety. He wondered if the company's list of darkness was much vaster than he thought. The method to enter, however, seemed deceptively simple. He just needed to write his name in the sender section of the provided card, a seemingly innocuous action. Soleum wrote "Dear" on the card, fulfilling the instruction. As he did so, his eyes caught sight of a strange postcard, tucked away within the manual itself. He read it, and a chilling realization dawned upon him. The postcard described his exact situation, finding a strange postcard, being recruited for a quiz show, and then being dragged into it. It explained how, after writing his name in the sender section of a similar card, he was pulled into a truly bizarre quiz show. The words perfectly mirrored his current predicament. As he finished reading, he was suddenly enveloped in a blinding, golden light. The world around him dissolved, replaced by a new, startling reality. He found himself on a brightly lit stage, complete with a well-dressed host, his figure imposing. It was a proper stage, designed for an audience, not a terrifying ordeal. A spectacular band played in the background, their music filling the air, adding to the surreal atmosphere. This was a grand production, far beyond a simple ghost story. Contestants, presumably other victims, stood filled with a terrifying mix of passion and fear. Soleum realized he was now one of them, a player in this macabre game. The host, with an impressive, theatrical flourish, declared that it was the connection with all of them that truly made a show. His voice boomed across the stage. He urged everyone to cheer, to participate in the spectacle. Soleum stood there, a participant in this bizarre, terrifying game, completely unprepared for the upcoming ordeal. The host, with a wide, unsettling smile, boomed, "Welcome to the Tuesday quiz show." His words echoed, sealing Soleum's fate in this unexpected competition. Soleum stood frozen, the reality of his situation sinking in. He was a contestant, trapped in a game he didn't sign up for, with unknown penalties for failure. The bright lights felt suffocating, the cheers of an unseen audience, a distant, mocking sound. His heart pounded, a frantic drum against the sudden, overwhelming fear. What happens next changes everything for Kim Soleum. The rules of this quiz show were unknown, and the stakes were undoubtedly deadly, far beyond any ghost story he had faced. This was only the beginning of his true challenge. And nobody, not even the meticulous section chief, could have possibly seen it coming. Kim Soleum found himself in a place he never expected, under the harsh lights of the Tuesday quiz show. He was one of 3 contestants, introduced as Roe Deer, feeling a profound sense of anxiety. This was not a normal game, and his survival depended on playing along, even if everything felt deeply unsettling around him. The atmosphere was electric, a strange mix of forced cheer and underlying tension. He knew he had to be careful, to observe every detail, but his nerves were already fraying. This was his first time participating in such an event, and the pressure of the moment weighed heavily on him. From the corner of his eye, he could see the other contestants, also wearing masks, their expressions unreadable. They were introduced as Badger and Peregrine Falcon, names that felt more like code than actual identities. He wondered what kind of people they truly were. The host of the show was a peculiar sight, a vintage television set with a simple, smiling emoji face where a human head should have been. It spoke with a booming, artificial voice, welcoming everyone to the broadcast. The sight did little to ease Kim Soleum's growing apprehension. The host began by addressing him directly, noting his apparent nervousness. "You must be very nervous ahead of your first broadcast, Mr. Roe Deer," the metallic voice echoed across the studio. Kim Soleum felt a shiver run down his spine, unsure how to respond to the strange entity. He tried to regain his composure, forcing a calm expression. This whole situation felt incredibly surreal, a bizarre dream he desperately wanted to wake from. He knew he had to keep his wits about him, despite the overwhelming oddity of the show. He looked at the host, trying to make sense of the unsettling image. Was this strange TV entity truly the host of this peculiar quiz show? The thought was unsettling, yet he needed to process it to keep his fear in check. The stage was set, lights shining down on the 3 contestants. The cheering of an unseen audience filled the studio, a sound that felt both encouraging and deeply sinister. Confetti rained down, adding to the unsettling, artificial festivity of the event. The host continued, explaining that the cheers were for the contestants. Kim Soleum could feel the anticipation building, a strange mix of excitement and dread. He knew this was just the beginning of whatever ordeal awaited him. He glanced at Badger and Peregrine Falcon, who stood calmly in their positions. They seemed far more composed than he felt, perhaps more accustomed to these strange events. Their steady presence was both a comfort and a source of further anxiety. The host's voice boomed again, announcing that the contestants' cheers were indeed for them. Kim Soleum tried to regulate his breathing, focusing on the simple task of staying calm. He knew panic would only make things worse here. Internally, he wrestled with his fear. He recalled a past, terrifying encounter with a convenience store ghost, trying to use it as a benchmark. Compared to that genuine horror, this bizarre quiz show felt almost manageable, a strange coping mechanism. He decided to reframe the host in his mind, imagining it as just a person wearing a TV mask. This mental trick made the situation slightly less terrifying, allowing him to push through the initial shock and focus on the task ahead. The lights of the studio shimmered around the host, reflecting off its metallic surface. The illusion of a normal game show was almost convincing, if not for the unsettling nature of the host and the mysterious circumstances. He knew this event had a specific classification, a Dusk D grade quiz. Such classifications were important in his world, denoting the level of danger and the nature of the challenges involved. This was no ordinary television program. He remembered the critical detail. These particular quiz segments were often rigged. It was a setting where the participants already knew the answers, a show designed for a specific, predetermined outcome. This should have been simple, but he sensed a deeper game. The host's voice filled the air, signaling the official start of the quiz. Kim Soleum braced himself, pushing down the last vestiges of his fear. He had to be ready for whatever was coming, despite the unsettling nature of his surroundings. "Let's get right into it," the host exclaimed, its emoji face beaming. The energy in the studio intensified, the artificial excitement pressing down on Kim Soleum. He took a deep breath, preparing himself for the first question. He watched as the other two contestants, Badger and Peregrine Falcon, stood ready, their masked faces betraying no emotion. They seemed entirely at ease, perhaps confident in their foreknowledge of the answers. He envied their composure. Their relaxed demeanor made him feel even more exposed, his nervousness a stark contrast to their calm. He wondered if he was missing something, if there was a hidden layer to this game that he had yet to uncover. The host then turned to him again, its voice filled with an almost mocking concern. "Oh my, Mr. Roedier, you seem quite nervous. Are you all right?" The direct question startled him, forcing him to quickly compose himself. He managed a strained, "I'm okay," trying to sound more confident than he felt. He explained that it was just his first time participating in a quiz show, hoping his simple explanation would suffice and not raise further suspicion. The host paused for a moment, its emoji face unchanging. The silence stretched, amplifying Kim Soleum's anxiety. He wondered if his performance was convincing, or if the host could see right through his facade of calm. "Then I'll ask you a simple question," the host declared, its voice returning to its cheerful, booming tone. Kim Soleum's heart pounded. This was it, the first hurdle he needed to clear to survive this bizarre broadcast. The question appeared on a screen. Choose the item that is not suitable as a component of a human being. Below it, 4 options were listed. 1. Water. 2. Iron. 3. Oil. 4. Earth. Kim Soleum read them, a sense of foreboding settling over him. He knew the answer from the pre-show briefing was supposed to be water. Humans are mostly water, so it's a trick question, making water the not suitable answer in a strange way. But his gut told him otherwise. He looked at the options again, a battle raging in his mind. The prepared answer was clear, but the context of this strange quiz show made him doubt everything. He felt a deep hesitation, a dangerous feeling in this environment. The host's voice cut through his thoughts, observing his struggle. "Incredible, isn't it?" it said, an unsettling cheerfulness in its tone. Then it turned to the other contestant. "Unbelievable. Miss Peregrine Falcon too?" Peregrine Falcon, who had been watching him intently, suddenly reacted with a small, surprised sound. It seemed his hesitation was noticed, perhaps even unexpected. This added another layer of pressure to his already tense situation. The host seemed to revel in his struggle, its voice echoing with a theatrical flair. "It seems Mr. Roedier is struggling to choose the correct answer." The ticking sound of a clock began to fill the studio, amplifying the tension. The incessant ticking reverberated through the studio, each second feeling like an eternity. Kim Soleum felt the spotlight intensify, the eyes of the host and the other contestants fixed on him, waiting for his move. He closed his eyes for a brief moment, trying to clear his head. This was not a normal quiz, and he couldn't rely on simple logic or prepared answers. He had to trust his instincts, whatever they were telling him in this moment. A sudden realization struck him, a flash of insight that felt both terrifying and correct. He opened his eyes, a new resolve hardening his gaze. He knew what he had to do, even if it defied the preset expectations. "Number 3, he declared, his voice firm despite the tremor in his hands. "Strangulation." He corrected himself, or perhaps clarified, "oil." The word hung in the air, a bold and unexpected choice that surprised everyone. The host paused for a dramatic beat, then its voice boomed with approval. "That is correct," it exclaimed, its emoji face beaming even wider. Confetti burst around them, a strange celebration for such an unusual answer. Kim Soleum was stunned. The answer was oils, not the prearranged water. He tried to process the implications, forcing a smile to match the celebratory mood. He knew something was very wrong with this quiz. He watched the host, trying to understand its motives. It seemed pleased with his deviation from the script, but why? He had to maintain his composure, pretending to be delighted by his supposed triumph. The host then turned its attention back to him, its voice still full of manufactured enthusiasm. You chose number 1, it began, a hint of something unreadable in its tone. Kim Soleum braced himself for the follow-up. He had chosen oil, which was number 3. The host's statement confused him, as if it was referring to a different choice entirely. This subtle shift in reality was deeply unsettling, adding to the surreal nature of the show. Number 2, number 3, and number 4, the host continued, its voice now completely devoid of its earlier cheer, are correct. Kim Soleum's eyes widened. All options were correct? This was not how quizzes worked. He stared at the host, utterly bewildered. The rules of the game seemed to be shifting, or perhaps there were no rules at all. His mind raced, trying to grasp the true nature of this terrifying charade. The host then addressed an unseen person, a stagehand perhaps. Do you know the correct answer? It asked, its tone now flat and cold. A nervous voice responded, I don't. The facade of a normal show was crumbling. Oh, I see, the host replied, its voice regaining a hint of its artificial cheer, as if nothing unusual had happened. Kim Soleum felt a chill. The host was playing a dangerous game, and he was caught in the middle. Actually, the host announced, the answer prepared by our writers is number 1. Kim Soleum's blood ran cold. He had been right about the prepared answer, but his deviation was praised as impressive. This was a trap. However, the host declared, its voice rising again. Isn't Mr. Roe Deer's answer much more impressive? The question hung in the air, a thinly veiled threat or a twisted compliment. He couldn't tell which. He felt a wave of profound unease. The host was deliberately subverting the expected outcome, praising his impressive answer as a means to some unknown end. He realized he was being tested in a far deeper way. The host's gaze, or what passed for it, seemed to bore into him. He felt like a puppet, dancing on strings he couldn't see, controlled by an entity he couldn't comprehend. The entire situation was a carefully crafted illusion. The host then announced his achievement. Mr. Roe Deer, congratulations. He had been awarded the MVP for the 99th round. The other contestants, Badger and Peregrine Falcon, looked on, their masked faces still unreadable. Badger, in particular, seemed to be suppressing a yawn, a subtle gesture that spoke volumes about their exhaustion. A small note appeared, reminding everyone that even yawns had to be hidden from the camera, a chilling detail. He was the MVP for the 99th round. This number resonated with him, a stark reminder of the 100th round, a significant milestone he had somehow avoided. The implications of this felt heavy, almost like a burden. The host called for a big round of applause for their MVP, and the studio lights flared. Kim Soleum accepted the applause, a strange mix of relief and dread washing over him. He knew this wasn't truly over. Thank you, he mumbled, barely audible over the manufactured cheers. He just wanted this terrifying ordeal to end. The fake smiles and forced celebration felt like a mockery of genuine relief. He let out a quiet sigh. Anyway, it's over, he thought, trying to convince himself that the danger had passed. But a cold knot of fear remained in his stomach, a premonition that this was far from the end. It's a shame, the host announced, but now it's time to wrap up the Tuesday quiz show. Kim Soleum felt a surge of genuine relief. He could finally escape this bizarre and dangerous environment. The host promised, tomorrow we'll return with even better guests, its voice still cheerful. But then, a sudden, jarring glitch distorted the broadcast, streaks of color tearing through the image on the screen. The host's emoji face flickered, replaced by the unsettling image of a microphone. The illusion of a friendly game show shattered, revealing the sinister reality beneath. Kim Soleum's heart hammered in his chest. The glitch spread, affecting the other contestants. Badger and Peregrine Falcon's human disguises began to waver, their masked faces distorting into something grotesque and inhuman. The truth was revealing itself. Kim Soleum watched in horror as the faces of his fellow contestants twisted into monstrous forms, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. He had been so focused on the quiz, he hadn't seen the true game at play. He finally understood the chilling reality. He was not merely a participant in a quiz show. He was trapped, surrounded by terrifying entities, and the 100th round he had just avoided was not a victory, but a delay of an inevitable, horrifying fate. Our protagonist found himself trapped in what felt like a nightmarish quiz show, haunted by the unsettling thought that he had somehow entered a real ghost story. He watched the other participants, members of a field exploration team, with growing dread. His heart pounded as he stared at the TB-headed host, a peculiar figure who seemed to orchestrate this bizarre event. The host's casual demeanor only added to the chilling atmosphere. He wondered why the people who came first were still there, still trapped in this macabre game. A sense of unease settled deep in his gut, growing with each passing moment. A stark warning appeared. Disrupting the broadcast will result in incineration. The words hung heavy in the air, a chilling promise of the consequences of disobedience. Then, with a sudden flash of fire, One of the participants was incinerated before their very eyes. The horrifying reality of their situation slammed into the protagonist. He struggled to maintain his composure, knowing that any reaction could spell his own doom. He had to keep a poker face, even as terror gnawed at him. The host, oblivious to the horror he had just inflicted, cheerfully announced a surprise preview of participants for next Tuesday, which included everyone currently present. The protagonist could only watch in stunned silence as the host prattled on, his words a jarring contrast to the brutal display they had just witnessed. He was still trying to process the incineration. He knew he shouldn't react, shouldn't show any emotion that might be deemed disrespectful behavior. A chilling yellow note appeared, reinforcing the threat of ejection. Internally, he cursed the situation, the unfairness of it all. The pressure to conform, to act as if nothing was wrong, was immense. As the show concluded, confetti rained down, a grotesque parody of celebration. The host bid farewell, promising an even more enjoyable show tomorrow. The credits rolled, listing the participants, including YOU, a direct and unsettling acknowledgement that solidified the protagonist's role in this twisted spectacle. Phew, the host sighed, as if relieved after the broadcast ended. He commented on how they almost ruined the live show but managed to salvage it. A janitor swept up the debris, a stark reminder of the participant who had been incinerated. The casualness of the cleanup was deeply disturbing. The host then mused that the new participants must have been very surprised, but reassured them not to be disappointed, implying they'd get another chance. Our protagonist watched the host, a growing suspicion forming in his mind. He wondered what the host truly meant by another chance. Then, the host dropped a bombshell. This show was cancelled. The Tuesday quiz show was no more. A wave of confusion rippled through the remaining participants. The host quickly clarified that it wasn't the end of everything, but rather the quiz segment itself had been replaced. His smile remained unsettlingly fixed. He then announced what he called good news, a phrase that now sent shivers down the protagonist's spine. Nothing good had come from this show. The host revealed that all of them, the current participants, would be invited to the new segment as well. The protagonist's eyes widened in alarm. This development was far from good news. It meant they were still trapped, still forced to participate in whatever new horror awaited them. The host continued, explaining his role as an assistant for the new pre-recorded broadcast, promising to make it a good show. But the protagonist had heard enough. He tried to assert himself, stating that they had already participated and would be leaving now. He hoped to break free from this nightmare. But the host's tone hardened. "And you're leaving?" he asked, his voice laced with an undeniable threat. Escape wouldn't be so simple. The host calmly explained that the stipulations should have been written on the application postcard, making it clear that leaving mid-broadcast was troublesome. His question, "Can't you really do it?" was less an inquiry and more a command, leaving no room for refusal. The protagonist felt a knot of dread tighten in his stomach. He argued that they hadn't known they would be appearing consecutively and thus weren't prepared for continuous participation. He desperately needed to stop this, to find a way out before they were all consumed by the show's dark nature. The thought of what might come next was unbearable. He attempted to make an excuse, suggesting they needed preparation and would head out for the day, promising to return next Tuesday. A staff member held up an OK sign, seemingly agreeing to their request for a break. For a fleeting moment, the protagonist felt a glimmer of hope. But the host's voice cut through the air. "Now, let's take our places." He declared that the show must go on, crushing any hope of escape. The protagonist realized this host was beyond reason, an unyielding force determined to continue the broadcast at any cost. With a chilling countdown, the host commanded, "ACTIO." The new segment began, and the protagonist felt an icy grip of terror. The host, with his usual unsettling cheer, welcomed the viewers to the new segment of their talk show. The forced joviality was sickening. He assured the audience there was no need to be sad about the Tuesday quiz show disappearing. His words were hollow, a cruel mockery of comfort. He boasted they had prepared an even more advanced form of the quiz show, promising something truly captivating. After all, he mused, nothing touches the heart quite like a melody, especially voices. His gaze lingered on the participants. "I'm sure you will all absolutely love it," he proclaimed, his smile widening as he unveiled the name of the new segment. It was called Tuesday's Choir. The title, innocent on its own, now sounded like a death knell in the chilling context of their reality. He then introduced the guest conductor of the Purgatory Choir, hyping him up with disturbing descriptions. The host called him the filthy, ugly, and great butcher of melodies, a title that promised nothing but horror. He announced that the maestro's great equipment was now coming down. The air crackled with a sinister energy. A grotesque pig's head, adorned with a bow tie, descended from the ceiling, confirming the chilling reality of the Butcher of Melodies. The host then extended the honor of the first attempt to their new faces, a veiled threat directed at the protagonist and his companions. Mr. Mole, one of the new participants, stepped forward, his face a mask of fear and confusion. The question appeared. Which of the following creatures has the longest lifespan? 1. Pig. 2. Human. 3. Rabbit. 4. Flea. Mr. Mole, clinging to the rules of the old quiz show, hoped that a correct answer would keep him safe. With a trembling voice, he answered, Human. Number 2. It's human. He believed he had found the correct answer. Correct, the host declared, a triumphant grin spreading across his face. But this was no cause for celebration. In a horrifying instant, Mr. Mole's head was severed from his body, falling onto a silver tray. It was a gruesome reward for a correct answer. His severed head, now part of the macabre choir, cried out, H, human, and it's human PGH. The chilling truth of the choir was revealed. The rules of the sacrificial canticle appeared, a conductor and 13 silver trays, each holding a severed head. These heads would then sing an a cappella. The maximum number of heads allowed was 7, and even one head induced mild headaches, anxiety, and sudden mood swings in the audience. Another participant, Sion, screamed in terror, her face contorted in horror. She understood the true meaning of Mr. Mole's correct answer. The host, utterly unfazed, turned his attention to Mr. Jellyfish, asking if he was ready for his turn. Mr. Jellyfish, paralyzed by fear, cried out that he didn't know the answer, choosing to take the penalty rather than face Mr. Mole's fate. Oh dear, eliminated, the host announced, a hint of false pity in his voice. Mr. Jellyfish vanished in a flash of light. The protagonist watched as an entire group of participants disappeared within minutes of the recording. The rules of this new game were brutally clear. He realized the penalty system was gone. Answering incorrectly meant unconditional elimination, but answering correctly meant having your head severed and becoming an A-grade ghost story. A chilling memory surfaced. The names of his superiors, Park and Hajie, were nowhere in the records of dark exploration. They were never meant to be there. The host, undeterred by the carnage, announced the next participant. It's a familiar face, he said, his smile widening. It is your turn to answer, the host declared, his eyes fixed on the next victim. Mr. Badger, the host boomed, calling out the name of another participant. The tension in the room became unbearable. A wiki page appeared, detailing the Tuesday quiz show moderator as a grade D entity and the chilling revelation suggested that the host and the pig-headed conductor were not just characters in a show, but powerful, classified entities. Kim Soleum found himself trapped in a deadly broadcast, forced to play a game where the stakes were life or death. He was a new recruit to Team D, armed with knowledge from a mysterious wiki, but even that felt insufficient as the chilling game began. The moderator, a figure with a television for a head, turned to one of the other participants, demanding an answer. The air in the room grew heavy, and a palpable tension settled over everyone present. This man, known as Mr. Badger, was next in line. He stood frozen, his face a mask of terror as the moderator's gaze fixed upon him. He knew his turn had come. The weight of the situation crushed him. He understood that if he answered correctly, the horrific game would continue, and they would all perish one by one. The thought of the impending doom was overwhelming. He looked around, his eyes wide with despair, convinced that there was no escape for anyone, especially not a coward like him. The dread was absolute. A wave of shared fear rippled through the participants. The realization settled in that they were all facing the same terrifying fate, and each person felt the impending doom. Kim Soleum watched Mr. Badger's breakdown, a familiar wave of fear washing over him. Yet, he fought it, reminding himself of his unique advantage and the crucial role he had to play. He was Kim Soleum, the one who had read the wiki, the one who possessed the knowledge that might just tip the scales. He had to pull himself together for everyone's sake. The moderator, oblivious to the internal struggles, repeated the question to Mr. Badger, his tone unwavering. He was ready for the answer, and time was running out. Mr. Badger's fear consumed him, and he could only scream, desperately asserting his humanity, as if that would somehow make a difference in this grim game. His pleas grew more frantic, a primal scream echoing in the sterile room. He was utterly terrified, unable to comprehend the situation or find a way out. The moderator, however, remained unfazed, his TV screen head displaying a simple, smiling face. He patiently waited for Mr. Badger to compose himself and deliver his answer. Mr. Badger, still trembling, managed to ask for a moment, a small favor before he was forced to proceed. He wanted to say one last thing. He revealed that he had a family member in the hospital, and his deepest wish was for someone to check on them after this terrifying ordeal concluded. The moderator's smiling screen displayed an image of a cup of tea, and he commented on how touching Mr. Badger's request was. He then promptly demanded the answer. Just as Mr. Badger was about to speak, Kim Soleum, now referred to as Mr. Roe Deer, raised his hand, interrupting the moderator. He claimed to feel dizzy and requested a brief rest. Mr. Badger, along with the other participants, was stunned. Interrupting the moderator was a dangerous act, one that could lead to immediate and fatal consequences. Yet, to everyone's astonishment, the moderator called "See you, tut," and announced a 30-minute break. The recording would pause, and they would resume later. Kim Soleum felt a wave of relief. His gamble had paid off. He knew that if this had been a live broadcast, he would have been instantly incinerated for his interruption. But it wasn't live. It was a recorded broadcast, a crucial distinction that allowed him a window of opportunity, a chance to buy time. He had prepared for this, utilizing smile stickers and the Alice Picnic satay canned drink to subtly influence the moderator's mood and amplify the item's effects. The moderator's voice, still friendly, confirmed the pause, even offering Mr. Roe Deer some water and rest in the waiting room. Kim Soleum had successfully bought 30 precious minutes. Alone in the waiting room, Kim Soleum knew he had to act quickly. 30 minutes was a short reprieve, and he couldn't afford to waste a single second. His attention turned to the item Deputy Unhage had secretly slipped him earlier. It was a small, unassuming button, barely noticeable. He examined it closely. It looked like something designed to be pressed, a potential tool in this desperate situation. He decided to take the risk. With the decisive click, he pressed the button. A soft, connecting sound filled the air, indicating that it was more than just a simple ornament. It was a communicator, and a voice immediately responded, identifying himself as Lee Jahayon. Kim Soleum recognized the name from the wiki, a potential ally. This was Deputy Unhaje's call button, and it had connected him directly to its intended target. He felt a surge of hope, a potential lifeline in this nightmare. Lee Jahan, the voice on the other end, calmly asked if he was speaking to the team leader of Team D. Soleum confirmed, introducing himself as Kim Soleum, the new recruit. He wasted no time, stating that he had an urgent report to make. There was no time for pleasantries. Lives were hanging in the balance. Kim Soleum delivered the grim news. In 30 minutes, all of Team D was scheduled to die. He spoke quickly, hoping Jahan would understand the gravity of the situation. Lee Jahan's response was remarkably calm. He simply said, "I see," and then asked if Soleum could stall for another 30 minutes. Soleum, despite his earlier success, felt a pang of doubt. Stalling for another 30 minutes seemed impossible given the moderator's nature. Jahan then began to explain. If they could gain a total of 55 minutes, they could secure permission from the security team to rent weapons and entry gear. He detailed the logistical challenges, 40 minutes for the procedures, plus an additional 20 minutes to enter the dangerous area known as the Darkness. This entire process, Jahan stressed, was absolutely essential. It was the only way for Team D to have a statistical chance of being rescued. Kim Soleum was astonished. He questioned whether Jahan was suggesting he could single-handedly suppress an A-grade ghost story with just special equipment. Jahan's unwavering confidence and calm demeanor made Kim Soleum wonder if he was truly one of the E-named employees he had read about in the wiki. He decided to test his theory, asking Jahan what kind of mask he was wearing, hoping for a clue to his identity. Jahan's answer was unsettling. Number 2, H-Human. It was a strange, almost contradictory response, but it seemed to confirm Soleum's suspicions. The 30-minute break concluded. The moderator, still influenced by the smile stickers, addressed Mr. Roe Deer with a friendly tone, asking if he was ready. Kim Soleum confirmed, expressing his gratitude for the moderator's consideration. The plan was in motion, and there was no turning back. He looked at the moderator, knowing that his next move would be critical. He had something important he needed to tell him, a revelation that could change everything. As a makeup artist approached the moderator, Kim Soleum prepared to speak, holding a secret that would either save them or plunge them deeper into the deadly game. Roe Deer found himself trapped in a twisted game show, where survival depended on outsmarting the enigmatic moderator and the dangerous ghost stories they became. His current challenge required a delicate touch, as his life hung in the balance. He knew his elaborate plan wouldn't work unless he could first influence the moderator's unpredictable temperament. It was a risky move, but one he had no choice but to attempt. A deep breath steadied his nerves as he prepared to deliver words he never thought he would utter. He certainly didn't want to resort to such extreme measures. With a forced smile, he began to flatter the moderator, praising the incredible affection and enthusiasm poured into his show, a performance truly captivating. The moderator, a strange figure with a television for a head, seemed genuinely surprised, his screen displaying a curious exclamation mark. He asked if Deer was referring to him. Deer continued his compliments, detailing how the show's trendy yet flashy set, combined with its solid conceptual tone and manner, created a unique aesthetic. He also lauded the moderator's hosting style, noting its dynamic flow that shifted in real time, perfectly adapting to the audience's reactions as they unfolded. He concluded his lavish praise, declaring the moderator's engaging commentary made for an incredibly entertaining and truly captivating show. Internally, Deer winced at his own words. Faced with the immediate threat of death, these flattering words just spilled out, he thought, utterly shamed by his own desperation. The moderator's screen lit up with a delighted, emoji-like face, clearly pleased by the unexpected praise. A sound effect indicated his pure joy. He expressed his overwhelming pleasure, admitting he didn't know what to do with such high praise. He then added that a broadcast was a collaborative effort, making Deer a part of it too. Deer looked stunned by the moderator's response. He stammered a thank you, but quickly clarified that his earlier comments weren't meant in that particular way. He continued, explaining that he genuinely liked the moderator's show. However, he also admitted his profound disappointment that the show had been changed so unilaterally. The moderator's screen showed a sad, downturned mouth. He calmly replied that, unfortunately, it simply had to be this way, offering no further explanation. Deer observed the stark differences in the new format. The band sounds had significantly decreased, and the familiar penalties had completely disappeared. He also noticed the absence of a live audience, whose real-time reactions once defined the show. Instead, the moderator was now using recorded applause sounds. It felt utterly alien to Deer. This was not the talk show he had grown to know and appreciate. He sensed a profound shift in its very essence. He remembered the moderator's personal space, a waiting room whose walls were densely covered with posters for various talk shows. Those posters all emphasized the importance of communicating with a live audience, highlighting talk shows conducted in real time, a stark contrast to the current format. A deep sense of understanding began to settle in Deer's mind as he reflected on the moderator's true passion. He speculated that the changes were likely made to lessen production costs, stripping away the show's vibrancy for mere efficiency. He then wondered if the sudden revamp could also be directly linked to the casting of a particular guest, a new element that seemed to disrupt the old dynamic. Deer realized this new broadcast format, devoid of its original charm and authenticity, would surely displease the moderator himself, despite his earlier claims. The moderator's screen flickered with a sudden, intense glitch, accompanied by jarring static sounds, betraying his hidden displeasure. Deer uttered a soft, "Oh!" as he watched the moderator's reaction, recognizing the unspoken truth in the glitching screen. The moderator's screen returned to normal, his expression stern. He firmly stated that such concerns were not for a mere participant to worry about. Deer immediately apologized, understanding he had overstepped a boundary, even if he had only spoken the truth. A tense silence hung between them, the air thick with unspoken emotions, as they stood amidst the glittering, yet now hollow, set. Deer then explained he was actually a dedicated fan of the Tuesday quiz show and had looked forward to participating for a very long time. He confessed that he had been deeply saddened by its cancellation, admitting that his earlier remarks must have accidentally come across as rude. The moderator acknowledged his words with a polite nod, thanking him. However, he added, the world of show business remained cold and unforgiving. He explained that if the viewers preferred this current format, an entertainer's true mark was to quickly acknowledge and accept it, regardless of personal feelings. Deer, however, interrupted him, his voice firm. He declared that he still preferred the moderator's original show, the one he truly loved. He recalled the previous title card for the Tuesday quiz show, remembering the vibrancy and passion it represented. He praised the old show for its real-time communication with each and every audience member and how it showcased stories full of raw realism. Deer looked away, his voice softening. He explained that, at the very least, for a viewer like him, the previous show had simply been more. He then stopped himself abruptly, cutting off his own sentence. "No, never mind," he said, deciding not to push the subject further. He quickly backtracked, explaining he truly enjoyed the current live broadcast and had merely shared too much of his personal opinion. The moderator's screen flickered once again, a subtle glitch indicating the lingering impact of Rodeer's words beneath his composed exterior. A long, drawn-out silence followed, filled only by the low hum of the studio lights and the barely perceptible static from the moderator's screen. The glitching intensified, a series of sharp, distorted sounds filling the air, signifying a deeper disturbance within the moderator. The sounds escalated into a violent, tearing screech, as if the very fabric of the broadcast was being ripped apart by an unseen force. Suddenly, the moderator snapped out of his trance, letting out a sharp "ah!" as if realizing something important. He announced that only 60 seconds remained until they resumed filming, breaking the tense atmosphere with his professional directive. He then instructed everyone to return to their positions immediately, his voice firm and commanding, ready to pick up where they left off. Rodeer, meanwhile, calmly noted that his groundwork had been sufficiently laid. The moderator began his countdown, calling out 9. The moderator continued the countdown, his voice steady and clear, calling out 8. The moderator continued, his voice echoing through the studio, announcing 5. 4, he called out, the countdown progressing steadily. 3, he declared, the tension building with each number. 2, he announced, as the final moments ticked away before the show's restart. 1, he finished, the ultimate declaration before the broadcast would commence once more. A large, digital 100 flashed onto the screen, signifying that the show was now restarting, an ominous new beginning. A title card appeared, confirming the grim reality got dropped into a GHO story still gotta work. Rodeer glanced at the team leader's mask, a subtle curiosity stirring within him. He wondered about its true shape, a detail that might hold significance. In his hand, a small round button rested, an ordinary object that carried an extraordinary purpose in this bizarre game. The mask's true form was revealed. It's a lizard. The moderator then addressed Mr. Badger, telling him it was time for his final answer. Mr. Badger, the man wearing the lizard mask, was visibly sweating, his face etched with intense stress and fear as he faced his decision. Rodeer observed that the supervisor, Mr. Badger, was likely planning to simply say, "I don't know," a choice that would seal his fate. He mused that it would be far better to simply be incinerated than to become a human instrument, left with only a neck repeating the same meaningless words. However, Rodeer knew there was still a chance. He urged Mr. Badger internally to answer correctly, to fight for his survival. He believed it was simply too early for him to give up. That hope still flickered in the face of despair. Mr. Badger's eyes widened in sudden realization, a look of profound shock crossing his face as he processed the unfolding events. The moderator paused, giving Mr. Badger 3 seconds to provide his response. The silence was deafening, heavy with anticipation. Then, the moderator declared, "Number 4, burn." This was the fate for those who failed, but then his screen changed. The moderator's screen displayed a cheerful emoji, confirming that Mr. Badger had indeed given the correct answer. With a chilling cheerfulness, the moderator commanded them to hurry up and welcome him to the glorious choir, a gruesome fate for the winners. Mr. Badger's mask was violently ripped from his face, revealing his terrified expression as he was forcibly transformed, screaming in agony. A mysterious, postcard-like item then appeared, its ancient script hinting at powerful, hidden knowledge. Rodeer had previously asked if they could access the inside of the ghost story using the team leader's special equipment. The answer had been a resounding yes. He had also learned that only small items could be sent through the passage opened by this equipment, a crucial limitation. Rodeer had calmly replied that this restriction was more than enough for his purposes, revealing his cunning strategy. He then prepared for action, stating he would throw the item with the strongest possible force, focusing all his energy. Rodeer commanded, "Please throw it with all your might," ensuring the item would reach its target with maximum impact. He launched the small object with incredible force, a green flash of energy accompanying its trajectory through the air. The projectile soared through the air, a tiny but potent missile aimed at the heart of the ghost story's operation. Go Youngun, a new recruit, found herself navigating the treacherous world of Daydream Inc. Just 3 days into her new role, she had already cleared 2 Shade F darknesses, accumulating 66 points. It was a decent start. For a rookie, clearing 2 darknesses in 3 days was quite good, especially when the average for new recruits was only 1 or 2 a week. She was doing her best to adapt to this crazy company. Her team members were not exactly friendly, but at least the hazing wasn't too bad. She was determined to make it work. The ultimate goal, a wish coupon, required a staggering 500,000 points. It seemed like an impossible sum, one that might take her entire life to gather. Despite the daunting task, Go Yongun was committed. She had decided to pursue her goal with unwavering resolve, no matter how long it took. She often wondered if the other new recruits felt the same way, facing the same mix of hope and overwhelming odds in their own assignments. As she pondered this, her thoughts turned to her fellow recruits. She decided to check the company chat, thinking about contacting one in particular. A notification popped up signaling an official announcement. The chat was buzzing with questions about a recruit, Kim Soleum. The messages asked if anyone was acquainted with him and what it meant to clear an A grade as a major contributor. They even speculated if he was the person wearing the weird horned mask. Go? Youngwon's eyes widened in disbelief. The realization of what this could mean for her fellow recruit hit her with a profound shock. The story rewound to the afternoon of day 2, offering a glimpse into Kim Soleum's experience and how he had achieved such a remarkable feat. Kim Soleum was recovering, still a bit dazed from his recent ordeal. Someone remarked that people were already saying he should be immediately promoted to supervisor. He was given a recovery potion for ghost stories, a basic remedy that tasted like cold syrup. It was meant to quickly heal him and get him back into the field. Kim Soleum reflected on the situation, recalling how the guys in other departments had opposed his promotion, calling it unprecedented for a new recruit. He felt a pang of relief that they had opposed it. He knew that quick promotions often meant being thrown into even more terrifying ghost stories, a fate he wished to avoid. He remembered escaping the Tuesday quiz show. He and his team had been transported to the infirmary, bleeding profusely from their eyes, noses, and mouths. The memory of the blood and pain was vivid. He was simply glad they had survived the ordeal, a sentiment he held on to tightly. The blonde-haired deputy, grateful for Soleum's role in their survival, thanked him and offered him more recovery potions, urging him to eat as much as he wanted. Soleum politely declined the offer. He believed that the records of dark exploration, an item he possessed, had done all the heavy lifting during their mission. The deputy tried to make an excuse, saying that they, the seniors, were not incompetent. They had simply let their guard down because it was a D-grade mission. Soleum found the excuse pathetic. He knew the true danger they had faced, regardless of the official grading. He declared that he would prove himself in the next darkness, ready to face whatever came his way. His resolve was firm. The deputy, however, just wished that there wouldn't be a next darkness at all. The thought of another harrowing mission filled him with dread. They wondered how such an unprecedented incident would be reported to the higher-ups. The deputy confessed he had asked around, but no one seemed to know. He wished their team leader would strongly appeal to the higher-ups for proper recognition, but he knew the team leader wasn't the type to do something like that. Soleum suggested the deputy get promoted and appeal for them later. The deputy, however, adamantly refused, declaring he would rather resign than face such a burden. Soleum glanced at the snacks on the table, a fleeting thought crossing his mind. He wished he could simply gather points and buy things like that without the life-threatening risks. The team leaders' meeting was finally over, and he was on his way to meet them. A sense of anticipation filled the room. Soleum wondered if he would finally see the team leader's face. He knew the man was Section Chief Lee Jae-hoon. Lee Jae-hoon was one of the most famous characters in the records of dark exploration, renowned for his super play with AAA batteries during the Tuesday quiz show. He was also known as Employee D, or Lizard. The moment Lee Jae-hoon entered, Soleum's perception shattered. To his horror, the team leader appeared to him as a man with a lizard's head. Soleum tried to rationalize it, convincing himself he was experiencing a mental breakdown due to the lingering influence of the TB-headed moderator from their last mission. He desperately tried to believe his brain was simply mistaking the masked appearance for a lizard head, a trick of his traumatized mind. But then, his gaze fell lower. His own eyes confirmed what he was seeing. The team leader's mask, a white reptilian-like face covering, was not on his face. It was hanging casually on his waist. Soleum's mind raced, struggling to comprehend the reality before him. His fellow team members seemed completely unfazed. The deputy introduced Lee Jae-hoon to Soleum, urging him to say hello. Soleum remained silent, his mind reeling. The deputy, misinterpreting Soleum's shock, joked that he must have been surprised by how handsome the section chief was, and that he certainly didn't look like he was from their species. Lee Jae-hoon then directly addressed Soleum, his voice calm. He asked if Soleum could see him clearly. Soleum froze. He was terrified to answer, unsure if his perception was real or a hallucination. His eyes weren't hurt, and his eyesight was perfectly fine. There was nothing physically wrong with him. Soleum's mind went into overdrive, engaging in quick thinking. He had to process this reality immediately. He settled on a response, an internal command to maintain composure. I see. Good. That was natural, he thought, trying to control his facial expression. Judging by the calm atmosphere, everyone else in the room seemed to be seeing a perfectly normal human head. He resolved to not let his own perception show. Lee Jae-han then got straight to the point, announcing that he would deliver the information regarding their recent incident. He began by explaining the trigger for the situation, the intrusion of another team into the assigned ghost story. It turned out that the Tuesday quiz show had been double assigned due to a staff member's error, a simple mistake with profound consequences. Team D, the other group, had paused their postcard writing to buy coffee for a new recruit, causing a 50-minute time difference in their entry. That team was known for taking exceptional care of its members, which explained their stop. It was an ironic twist of fate. Despite the high initial survival rate of 43%, an official notice declared that the A-grade re-evaluation of the Tuesday quiz show was not approved. The deputy was outraged, exclaiming, "Excuse me?" He couldn't believe the decision. He furiously questioned the decision, pointing out that an entire team had been wiped out. They had even collected an A-grade Dream Essence collector solution. The higher-ups, however, claimed they couldn't rule out the possibility of a special situation where a high-grade solution could be extracted from a low-grade mission. The deputy was seething, declaring he was so pissed off he couldn't let this slide. He wanted to go and talk to them directly. His blonde-haired colleague quickly intervened, stopping him before he could storm off. The colleague reminded him that Team D had collected all the A-grade solutions. He asked if it was truly going to end with a D-grade performance record despite that. Lee Jae-han, the team leader, confirmed that it was not. He had secured a separate compensation. Considering the special nature of the situation and the fact that their exploration was comparable to an A-grade mission, a separate compensation had been allocated. It was essentially the company's way of telling them to accept the situation and remain silent. A common practice in such an organization. Lee Jae-han announced that 30,000 points would be granted per person as compensation, a significant sum for their efforts. And for Kim Soleum, as the highest contributor to the clear, an additional 10,000 points would be paid. This brought Kim Soleum's total to an astonishing 40,000 points. The deputy was ecstatic, shouting in delight. The deputy felt like his resignation had just moved up by about 3 years, a testament to the value of the points. Soleum, however, thought the points weren't transferable. He felt a pang of embarrassment, believing the deputy had practically done everything. But the deputy reassured him, saying it was fine. It was actually better that the A-grade clear record wasn't officially logged for them. Ro Deer, a new recruit at Daydream Inc, found himself at his first company dinner, a rare moment of comfort away from the usual client entertainment. He even offered to grill the meat, though his colleagues quickly insisted that new recruits shouldn't be handling the tongs. His sonbai playfully chided him, explaining that there would be plenty of work in the future, so he should just relax and eat. Ro Deer, however, was not worried about work. He was just trying to find somewhere else to look. He found his gaze drawn to team leader Lee Jae-han, whose face, to Ro Deer, appeared distinctly reptilian. Yet he observed that none of the other team members seemed to notice anything unusual. That realization was a bit unsettling, but Ro Deer had to admit that the atmosphere at this dinner was surprisingly pleasant. It felt different from his previous, more formal work events. Having some alcohol also helped. He found it made the whole situation a bit less scary, taking the edge off the strange reality he now inhabited. He reflected on how long it had been since he could eat so comfortably. All his recent company dinners had been solely for entertaining clients, leaving little room for genuine relaxation. Ro Deer planned to return to his dorms after this dinner, eager to binge-watch kids' anime and sleep with the lights on. It was his way of coping with the stress of his unusual job. During the meal, team leader Lee Jae-han, whom Ro Deer internally referred to as Ro Deer, inquired about his plans for the 40,000 points he had recently received. Ro Deer explained that he intended to save up his points to buy a wish coupon, a valuable item within the company system. His sonbae, overhearing, acknowledged his plan. The team leader then asked if Ro Deer had any recommendations on where to use his points, perhaps hinting at a better option than saving for a wish coupon. Ro Deer, always calculating, wondered what a good use for those points might be. He listened intently, sensing an important piece of information was about to be shared. The team leader, with a sudden flash of insight, suggested customization equipment. It was a concept Ro Deer had heard of, but hadn't fully understood. He hadn't expected the topic of personal equipment to be brought up so casually in the middle of a company dinner. Yet, he sensed it was an important discussion. The team leader explained that one of the main traits of Daydream Inc. employees was their reliance on personal equipment. This was crucial for survival in their line of work. As everyone knew, Daydream Inc. was a company that sacrificed employees to horrible ghost stories in order to harvest potions. It was a perilous and demanding job. If that was the case, a crucial question arose. Wouldn't all the employees die in high-grade ghost stories, making it impossible to harvest any potions at all? The solution to this problem was a rule. The higher an employee's rank, the stronger the special equipment they owned. This was the essence of personal equipment. Of course, the equipment didn't grant ghost story-like powers directly. Instead, it provided a slight, but often vital, boost to an employee's special stats, aiding their survival. Deer had only a partial understanding of this system, knowing it was ultimately just equipment for exploring ghost stories, but not the intricate details. He learned that the company had an annex next to the main building. This was where relatively safe and useful ghost stories were kept isolated from the rest. For example, he was reminded of the radio in their office, a ghost story that could tell one's fortune for the day. Such useful stories were sorted and stored separately. The company referred to these particular ghost stories as Twilight Grade. They were a special classification within Daydream Inc.'s internal system. Officially, they were classified as E-grade ghost stories. However, the unique name was given because some were not only useful but also stronger than D-grade or less dangerous than F-grade. Customization equipment could also be made through specific Twilight Grade darkness owned by the company, linking the special equipment directly to these unique ghost stories. The team leader then listed the 3 Twilight Grade ghost stories that field exploration team employees commonly used to make their equipment. They were Joy Lab's Toymaker, Quitter W, EO7, Kind Seed Kit, Quitter W E99, and Offering a Memorial Service, Quitter W, E404. Deer listened, considering his options. He wondered which of those ghost stories he would end up using for his own personal equipment. The choice felt significant for his future survival. As they discussed, an employee, dressed in a hooded cloak, appeared before them, presumably managing the annex. The team approached the information desk. The Sunbae explained that they were from Team D of the Field Exploration Team and were visiting for new recruit training, setting the stage for Deer's customization. They requested clearance to access the Twilight Grade Darkness number 99, the Kind Seed Kit, for their training purposes. The hooded employee processed their request. After a brief wait, Deer and his team were granted access. The door to the facility opened, revealing a long, dark corridor. They walked through the dimly lit passage, the air growing heavy with an unseen presence. The metallic walls echoed their footsteps, leading them deeper into the annex. Finally, they arrived at their destination. A large, ornate structure stood before them, glowing with an ethereal light. This was the Kind Seed Kit, identified by the code QTRWE99. It was a ghost story appearing in the records of Dark Exploration. The Kind Seed Kit was a ghost story that treated objects like plants, extracting genetic information to crossbreed and sow them. It operated using moonlight as its energy source. The Sunbae explained that this particular darkness was one their department used almost exclusively, indicating its importance and utility. He then asked Deer if he needed points to use this customization method. The answer was a crucial detail for the new recruit. Deer learned that he did indeed have to pay a usage fee of 1,000 points per use to activate the Twilight Grade darkness in the annex. He reacted with surprise. If it was equipment needed to explore the darkness, shouldn't the company be providing it for free? It seemed like an unfair burden on employees. His Sunbae then clarified that once an employee became a supervisor, they could use it for free twice a year. Most people simply waited for their promotion. Becoming a supervisor usually took a year at most, so waiting seemed to be the common practice. Deer, however, was in a unique position. He mused to himself, wondering if he should have pushed for a promotion earlier. Yet, he trusted Section Chief Lee Jahan's judgment. There had to be a reason why Section Chief Lee Jahan deemed this particular ghost story useful, despite the cost. Deer decided to proceed. He declared that he would try using it now, trusting the team leader's advice over the financial cost. His survival instinct guided his decision. The Sunbae explained that it was beneficial if the items put in as materials possessed useful special abilities, as their traits would be mixed into the new equipment. He also reassured Deer that the original items would not disappear. Deer confirmed he understood, stating that he had already checked everything in the ghost story exploration logs, implying he had a plan. The Sunbae added that even if Deer didn't have any useful materials right now, he shouldn't worry. There was a team tradition of lending items for a new recruit's first equipment. He even mentioned that one could pay to borrow other equipment, offering various solutions. However, Deer seemed to have something else in mind. Rodir then addressed the team leader, stating that his equipment was the best among them and asked if he could take it out to lend it. The team leader, with a slight smirk, presented his equipment. It was a simple butter knife. He explained that by cutting the medium entering the darkness with this butter knife, one could transport small items in space. It had a surprisingly versatile ability. Rodir immediately recognized it. It was what the team leader had used to throw AAA batteries to him during the Tuesday quiz show, a past harrowing experience. He reflected that it would have been great if the item was defense-related, but it wasn't. Still, its utility was undeniable. The team leader then asked if the other two colleagues had any special equipment. One of them, the Sunbae, said his could pull off some tricks. He revealed it was the button Rodir had seen at the quiz show before, indicating it also had a unique, non-defensive function. Neither of them had defense equipment either. As for the other two, Rodir thought he could find something similar at the alien shop if needed. So, in that case, Rodir decided he would like to borrow the team leader's equipment, the butter knife, for his customization. With the items ready, Rodir was instructed to put them into the kind seed kit. A stern warning appeared: plant insertion strictly prohibited. The Sunbae reiterated that Rodir absolutely must not put in real plants. The sensor at the door filtered out all real plants anyway, but it was a crucial safety instruction. Rodir had a sudden realization. He remembered the weeds he had seen growing around the facility. Were they all fake? Artificial flowers, designed to prevent accidents? He remembered now. The company had a dark history with real plants. Kim Soleum, a rookie employee, had just returned home after navigating a harrowing ghost story. He was utterly exhausted, but a sense of quiet satisfaction settled over him, knowing he had survived the ordeal. He had spent the evening working with his seed kit, combining two items he'd acquired to forge a new custom weapon that might prove useful in future encounters. The ingredients were unique: Section Chief Lizard's butter knife and a silver snake he had purchased from an alien shop, which served as the parent plant for the combination. His team leader had told him to go home and test his new weapon there, a directive he was happy to follow after such a long and draining day. Even though he was back in his own apartment, the lingering unease of the ghost story still clung to him, a subtle reminder of the dangers he now faced regularly. His team leader, Yoon Haje, had acknowledged his hard work, wishing him a good rest and promising to see him again the next day, her words a comforting presence. Now, alone in his room, Soleum held the newly forged custom weapon in his hand. It was a small, unassuming coin, smooth and metallic. A furrow appeared on his brow as he stared at the coin, a sudden question arising in his mind. How exactly was he supposed to activate this thing? A wave of dread washed over him. He started to worry that the gacha had failed him, leaving him with something as useless as a toy coin, wasting his precious 1,000 points. Deciding to test it, he tried to activate the coin by donating 101, a small amount he hoped would be enough to trigger whatever power it held. He watched as the coin simply dropped to the floor, landing with a dull clink. Nothing happened, confirming his fear that the initial attempt had failed. A realization dawned on him as he picked up the coin. Perhaps the amount of money he offered was the actual problem, not the coin itself. He decided to try again, this time donating 501. A small glow emanated from the coin as it left his hand, a hopeful sign. Suddenly, a ghostly, translucent hand materialized from the coin, reaching out and then merging directly into his own. It was an unexpected and powerful activation. He felt an odd tingling sensation as the ethereal hand integrated with his, a strange new energy flowing through him, marking the successful activation of his custom equipment. This, he understood, was the true function of the custom equipment he had so carefully crafted. It was not a toy, but a tool of immense potential. The ghostly appendage mimicked his every movement, a perfect extension of his will. He mused that he could probably call it the third hand. He tested its capabilities, finding it could effortlessly mimic his actions, even writing with precision, an unexpected but useful application for his newfound power. The third hand proved incredibly versatile. It could open or close doors with a simple mental command, making everyday tasks surprisingly convenient. He discovered it could also apply force, easily unscrewing stubborn lids from containers, demonstrating a surprising level of strength and control. The range of its influence extended roughly 3 meters around him, and each activation lasted for about 5 seconds, a brief but potent burst of power. The convenience was immediate and welcome. He could even turn off the lights from his bed without having to move, a small luxury that brought a tired smile to his face. He considered how it differed from Section Chief Lizard's butter knife, a more direct and combat-oriented tool. This new equipment felt more subtle, more precise. Yet, despite its subtlety, it felt like a piece of equipment that was uniquely easier to use inside a ghost story, offering a different kind of advantage. The most significant benefit, he realized, was that he wouldn't have to touch suspicious objects with his bare hands anymore, a welcome safety measure in dangerous environments. Considering all its capabilities, he concluded this was definitely a successful gacha pull, well worth the points he had invested, providing him with a valuable new asset. The screen displayed his inventory, a list of items he carried, including his new custom weapon coin, a testament to his recent success. 501 for 5 seconds of telekinesis seemed like a fair trade-off, especially given the potential utility it offered in his line of work. He had invested 1,000 points into the gacha, so he fully expected this new weapon to earn its keep and prove its worth in the challenges ahead. He found himself in surprisingly good condition after the recent incident, a stark contrast to the exhaustion he often felt after clearing a ghost story. Perhaps, he mused, it was because the situation, despite its horrors, had ultimately ended well, leaving him with a sense of relief rather than lingering trauma. He also reflected on how lucky he had been with the people around him, a crucial factor in his survival and his ability to navigate such dangerous situations. Supervisor Park Min-sung, for instance, had not acted out of turn even when facing death, displaying a professionalism that had deeply impressed Soleum. Deputy Yoon Ha-jae, too, had shown incredible trust, lending her equipment to a rookie like him in an emergency, a gesture that had been vital. He knew that without Deputy Yoon Ha-jae's trust and assistance, he would never have secured Section Chief Lee Jahan's help, which had turned the tide. He had no idea how many more ghost stories he would have to clear in the future, the path ahead uncertain and fraught with unknown dangers. But surprisingly, he felt a flicker of optimism. He genuinely believed he might be able to get through this, finding strength in his newfound abilities and alliances. He even allowed himself to think that maybe he could endure this new life quietly, adapting to the strange reality he now inhabited. There was a time, not so long ago, when he actually thought that too, a time before his life was completely upended by the supernatural. His team leader, Yoon Ha-jae, called out to him, her voice carrying a serious tone as she informed him, "Ro dear, I think we're getting a job reassignment." Kim Soleum's eyes widened in surprise and confusion, his simple, "Excuse me?" echoing his disbelief at the unexpected news. A job reassignment, he knew, mainly meant a change in his assigned duties or a transfer to a different department within the company. He found it hard to believe that such a significant change would apply to someone like him, who had only been working there for 3 days. Yoon Ha-jae, however, seemed unconcerned by his rookie status. "I know that, punk," she replied, then asked if he had seen the official notice, which had just been posted. An official notice had indeed been posted, detailing compensation for employees who had resolved the special incident, a new development he hadn't yet seen. The notice specifically mentioned ICL TER D430W, D430Ys, which he knew was the identification code for the Tuesday quiz show, the recent ghost story they had cleared. To put it simply, his team had resolved a special incident, achieving an A grade, a feat that had earned them significant recognition and points. The company was giving their team 100,000 points for their success, with Kim Soleum explicitly named as a major contributor, receiving 40,000 points himself. He was utterly stunned, finding it crazy that they had straight up put his name on blast in an official notice like that. If this notice was truly the reason for the change, he pondered, what kind of job reassignment could it possibly be? The implications were unsettling. Yoon Ha-jae pressed him, her tone firm. "Did you see it?" "I'm asking if you saw it," she repeated, demanding his full attention. He confirmed that he had, then asked if a job reassignment meant they were moving to a different department entirely, a common consequence of such changes. Yoon Ha-jae took a sip from her cup, a slight smile playing on her lips. She clarified that it wasn't exactly a transfer, their workload was just changing a bit. She then delivered the bombshell. The darknesses they would be entering from now on would not have manuals. They would be going in blind. His teammates were outraged, seeing this as a blatant attempt to force them into impossible situations. "Isn't this basically just telling us to go die?" one exclaimed. Section Chief Lizard chimed in, equally furious. "I swear, it's ridiculous how they try to dump you into harder places just because you did one thing well." Kim Soleum's mind raced, wondering if there was actually a loophole they could use in this seemingly suicidal new assignment. Section Chief Lizard, however, remained unfazed, declaring that he hadn't really felt much of a difference with or without manuals, hinting at his raw power. Yoon Ha-jae then revealed the key detail. In exchange for the increased difficulty, additional points would be allocated for these manual-less ghost stories. Compared to darknesses of the same grade, these new assignments allocated 3 to 4 times more points, with a maximum multiplier of 15 times. For Kim Soleum, with his unique wiki's records of dark exploration, this wasn't a gamble. This was a guaranteed win, essentially a 3 times point multiplier event just for him. Kim Soleum lived in a world where supernatural dangers were a daily reality, a grim truth he faced every time he put on his suit. His days were spent navigating the terrifying unknown, a challenge that few could ever truly comprehend. His work demanded a constant vigilance, a readiness for the unexpected that kept his nerves frayed. He watched as a new figure approached, a man in a lab coat, and a sense of unease settled over him. The man offered a hand, a gesture of welcome, but Soleum found himself staring, a single question echoing in his mind about the stranger. The man smiled warmly, introducing himself as Kwak Jagang from Research Team 1, a section chief. He extended his hand in a polite greeting, his demeanor friendly and open. Soleum, still slightly stunned, managed to respond, acknowledging the introduction. He promised to look forward to working with his new acquaintance, though his thoughts were racing. He then introduced himself as Kim Soleum, extending his own hand. Kwak Jagang took it, bowing deeply, a gesture of respect that felt almost theatrical. Kwak Jagang remarked on Soleum's politeness with a cheerful tone, his smile unwavering. Soleum's colleague, Lee Jahan, leaned in, whispering that he shouldn't be intimidated by a mere section chief. Lee Jahayon reminded him that he too held a deputy position. Soleum, however, wasn't surprised by Kwak Jagang's rank, but by something far more significant. His surprise stemmed from a deeper, more unsettling realization. It wasn't the man's position that startled him, it was the fact that another named employee had appeared. Kwak Jagang was listed in the dark exploration records as cheerful and sociable, a rare description among the employees. Soleum knew this detail, and it made the man's presence all the more intriguing. He decided to keep his thoughts to himself for now, not wanting to reveal the depth of his surprise. He merely observed the new section chief, pondering the implications of his arrival. This research team, Kwak Jagang explained, was responsible for developing methods to enter new darkness realms. Their work was foundational, guiding the dangerous journeys ahead. Exploring these newly discovered darkness realms was the new assignment for Soleum's team, Team D. They were the ones who would venture into the unknown, gathering crucial data. Once Team D completed their exploration and submitted their reports, a comprehensive manual would be created based on their findings. Effectively, Team D was generating the very tasks that Research Team 1 would then process. Kwak Jagang offered a bright welcome to Team D, his voice echoing through the sterile research facility. He appeared genuinely pleased to see them, a stark contrast to the gravity of their mission. As Kwak Jagang spoke, the lizard, a member of Soleum's team, stood by holding a notepad. Lee Jahan, Soleum's colleague, grumbled internally, frustrated by the researcher's obvious statements. Lee Jahan silently cursed the man for spouting the obvious, especially since he wasn't even part of the field exploration team. He felt a surge of irritation, which Soleum quickly noticed. Soleum calmly intervened, reminding Lee Jahan to compose himself. He knew that maintaining their composure was crucial in this tense environment. Kwak Jagang, seemingly oblivious to the underlying tension, suggested they place a bet on the grade of the new darkness. He proposed it as a fun pastime among themselves. He insisted there was no harm in it, claiming that no one was dying over a small wager. His cheerful demeanor remained, even when discussing such a serious matter. Soleum glanced at his direct supervisor, surprised that the man wasn't intervening. It seemed the supervisor was content to let Kwak Jagang continue his unusual suggestions. He found it hard to believe that this was considered appropriate workplace behavior. Such casual disregard for danger felt like it crossed a significant line. Kwak Jagang laughed, observing Soleum's stoic expression. He called Soleum Mr. Soleum and complimented his guts for not reacting more strongly to the suggestion. He then clarified that he was only joking, though his smile never faltered. He assured them that this particular darkness wasn't a matter of life and death, reinforcing his carefree attitude. He pointed out that many civilians had entered and safely escaped this darkness, implying it wasn't as dangerous as it might seem. His words, however, did little to ease Soleum's apprehension. The Supernatural Disaster Management Bureau had been pressuring them to shut down this particular darkness. Its existence was a constant source of concern for the authorities. The strategic planning team had worked tirelessly to cover up the incidents and keep the darkness open for research. It was a constant battle against bureaucracy and public fear. Soleum's teammate, Noru, was handed a set of records to review. Soleum instructed Noru to check them thoroughly, understanding the importance of every detail. Noru acknowledged the instruction, his expression unreadable. Soleum knew the records held vital information about what they were about to face. Soleum scanned the records, his eyes widening at a particular entry. He was about to embark on a journey into a place known as Wetube, Clown. He paused, a flicker of concern crossing his face. The name itself was enough to send a shiver down his spine. Kwak Jigong then gestured to a large screen, inviting them to look. The image that appeared was a disturbing, grotesque clown, its face painted with a chilling smile. The image on the screen was a distorted, terrifying clown, its eyes wide and vacant. It was a stark visual representation of the horror they were about to confront. The screen flickered, showing another horrifying clown face, its features twisted into a grotesque rictus. The unsettling image pulsed with a dark, ominous energy. Then, an even more disturbing image appeared. A clown with a wide, manic grin, its eyes hollow. The atmosphere in the room grew heavy with dread. Suddenly, a red, clawed hand reached out from the screen, grabbing Soleum by the shoulder. The unexpected touch sent a jolt of terror through him. The hand gripped his shoulder tightly, its red color contrasting sharply with his dark suit. Soleum froze, his breath catching in his throat. Kwak Jigang, however, reacted with a casual, "Oh," as if this were a normal occurrence. He seemed entirely unfazed by the sudden, terrifying manifestation. The red hand tightened its grip, a clear sign of the supernatural threat they faced. Soleum felt a primal fear rising within him. Kwak Jigang, with a disturbingly cheerful expression, pointed at Soleum, exclaiming, "Hey!" His reaction was completely out of sync with the horrifying situation. The red hand continued to hold Soleum, who was now visibly distressed. He silently pleaded for the 3x point event, whatever it was, to be cancelled. The clown's face filled the screen, its grin wider, its eyes more unsettling. The image seemed to mock their fear, inviting them into its twisted world. The screen pulsed with red, showing multiple distorted clown faces, their laughter echoing in the background. The visual chaos was overwhelming, an assault on their senses. The horror they were facing was explicitly named, Pierrot Hates You. This was no mere game, it was a deeply unsettling ghost story with a malevolent presence. Soleum's eyes narrowed, his expression grim. He understood the true nature of the challenge ahead, a darkness that promised psychological torment. The description continued, detailing a hallway lined with various clown portraits. It was a place designed to trap and terrify, a maze of painted smiles. The ghost story depicted a place where one would wander endlessly, a perpetual nightmare. It was a realm designed to break the minds of those who entered. Noru, Soleum's teammate, listened intently, his masked face betraying no emotion, but his posture suggested a deep focus on the chilling details. The narrative explained that the clowns weren't wearing real makeup. Instead, they were grotesquely twisted people, forced into bizarre, smiling contortions. The longer one stayed in this darkness, the more twisted and bizarre the portraits became. It was a slow, insidious descent into madness, reflecting the victim's own unraveling mind. People who went missing in this ghost story became new clown portraits themselves, forever trapped within the endless hallway. It was a chilling fate for the unwary. Kwak Jigang casually remarked that a genuine horror movie or exploration record of this level was hard to come by. He treated the terrifying scenario like a fascinating curiosity. He even added that it wasn't as dark as he had initially thought, dismissing its horror with a shrug. Lee Jahan, however, remained unimpressed, his face a mask of annoyance. Lee Jahan asked Kwak Jigang if they should wait for dark adaptation before moving forward, a standard procedure for entering such environments. Kwak Jigang agreed, instructing them to close their eyes for a minute for adaptation. The lizard and Noru, ever compliant, prepared to follow the order. Soleum, however, questioned the logic. How could they suggest closing their eyes for a minute in a hallway filled with such chilling portraits? He worried about what might happen if they were to close their eyes, the unknown dangers lurking in the periphery of their vision. It felt like a reckless suggestion, yet Noru, his teammate, simply stated, "Okay." Soleum realized that despite the inherent danger, they would comply. He observed his teammates, noting their unwavering composure. These people, including the lizard, seemed to feel no fear, or at least, they showed no outward signs of it. They were the type who only got an adrenaline rush in life-or-death situations, finding typical horror boring. Their mental fortitude was both impressive and unsettling. Soleum continued to read the records, learning that if one stabbed the portraits, they would pop out and crawl after them. It added another layer of grotesque detail to the horror. He also discovered that a few civilians had managed to escape through the empty frames of the portraits. This detail sparked a thought in his mind, a potential clue. Kwak Jigeng instructed them to stab all the portraits they saw. A simple yet terrifying command. He wanted a direct confrontation with the manifested horror. The lizard, ever dutiful, confirmed the order, adding that if anything popped out, he would give a signal, and they would immediately run. It was a crude, desperate plan. Kwak Jigong reiterated that they would repeat these attempts hourly. He seemed to view it as a methodical experiment rather than a perilous mission. He reassured them that the crawling creatures would be slow, suggesting they wouldn't pose a significant threat. His confidence was unnerving, almost dismissive of the danger. Soleum, meanwhile, pointed to a specific clown portrait with weird eyes, asking Noru if it looked like a moody poster. He was trying to connect the dots, find a pattern. He observed the portrait closely, a sense of unease growing. The details were unsettling but also strangely familiar. Kim Soleum, a new recruit shrouded in a quiet intensity, found himself in a realm of oppressive darkness, ready to confront whatever horrors lay within. He held a peculiar coin, a tool for his unique abilities. A vibrant pink orb shimmered into existence before him, and from its core, a ghostly white hand materialized, glowing softly in the surrounding gloom. His masked colleague, intrigued, asked if this was his exclusive equipment. Soleum confirmed it was, but added that he still required one more crucial element to complete his preparations. The ethereal hand extended as a flurry of digital donations, each for 500 from Kim Soleum, appeared on an interface. He explained that the hand was an extension of his custom weapon, allowing him remote control over it simply by inserting a coin. His orange-haired companion reacted with an astonished, "Whoa." The companion then asked if this remote-controlled hand was essential for the clear method Soleum, known as Noru in this context, had devised. Soleum affirmed its necessity. He noted their limited time within the darkness and promised to provide a swift explanation of his strategy. He began by clarifying that the numerous portraits covering the walls were far from mere decorations. One specific portrait among them held the key to their escape. He explained that the ones which had previously sprung to life and lunged at them when poked were, in fact, the incorrect choices. Soleum instructed his team to trust his description of the correct portrait. On his signal, they would collectively search for the matching image. A skull-masked team member, hesitant, asked the section chief if this unorthodox plan was acceptable. The section chief, a figure with a reptilian head, agreed with a wide smile, stating that he always listened to his new recruits. Soleum gratefully acknowledged the section chief's trust and cooperation. Another colleague, observing the exchange, remarked that it certainly wouldn't hurt to heed Noru's advice in their predicament. One team member jokingly anticipated a vigorous workout, trying to match the section chief's pace. Soleum, however, gently interrupted, revealing that running was not actually necessary for their escape. He calmly explained that navigating this ghost story was surprisingly straightforward. If one possessed enough courage, they could simply stroll through the space at a leisurely pace, touching the various portraits without fear. A grim cartoonish illustration then depicted characters touching portraits. This seemingly innocuous act led to the sudden, horrifying demise of one character. His purple-haired colleague reacted with shock, questioning how someone perfectly fine moments ago could suddenly die. Soleum's eyes glowed with an ominous red light, a silent, chilling testament to the true nature of the dangers they faced. From his perspective, a swift escape was the only viable path to survival. Back in the mundane reality of their office, a digital timer on a screen displayed Team D Darkness entry elapsed. Times are reserved 1049. A bold message declared, "Let's go, escape speedrun." Another title card flashed across the screen, got dropped into a ghost story, followed by Still Gotta Work. Section Chief Kwak, in the office, idly speculated about the mission's likely grade. He suggested that a D grade was probably the safest bet for their team's performance. Supervisor Lee, a man with white hair and glasses, then arrived and cautioned Kwak. Lee advised Kwak to keep their betting discussions discreet, confined strictly to the development department and away from the ears of other teams. He then recalled his earlier irritation. Kwak's current behavior wasn't the sole cause of his foul mood. His thoughts drifted to Kim Soleum, the irritating new recruit from the field exploration team who had recently joined them. He remembered trying to include Soleum in their office betting pool, only to be met with a defiant glare from the young man. Lee fumed inwardly, despising the audacity of a mere human lab rat acting so superior. An internal betting chat log briefly appeared, showing a colleague placing a bet on a D grade and expressing a dark wish for Soleum's demise within the darkness. Quack then reminded Lee that he needed to complete the preliminary report before leaving for the day. Lee internally grumbled about being consistently burdened with such tedious tasks. He felt confident that the other teams wouldn't even manage to escape from the darkness before their official clock-out time. He scoffed at the stupid people who ignored warnings. These individuals, he thought, continued watching suspicious advertisements despite clear instructions to turn them off immediately. A data log provided context. Test subjects had watched a 5-second video titled, "Pierrot Hates You." This promotional advertisement, played on a specific video site, was the gateway to the darkness. Lee questioned why anyone would keep watching such a suspicious ad. He acknowledged that a few fortunate individuals did manage to survive and return. He recalled from civilian survivor testimonies that they reappeared through an empty portrait left behind by a clown. However, the critical piece of information, which specific portrait was the correct one, remained unknown. Descriptions of the hallway, the size of the portraits, and their frames varied wildly among survivor accounts. This lack of consistent information created a frustrating paradox, leaving everyone in a state of profound uncertainty about the true escape route. Lee concluded, therefore, that the only viable strategy left was brute force. Their approach would be to provoke the clowns, fend them off, and even take them down, exhausting all their stamina in the process. He cynically predicted that with such a high level of difficulty, at least 1 or 2 participants were bound to perish in the attempt. He dismissed the teams with a cold, uncaring thought, "Go ahead and drop dead." Suddenly, the team reappeared, back in the familiar confines of the office. Lee was utterly stunned, demanding to know what had just transpired. The orange-haired team member, visibly elated, offered Noru coffee and snacks, implicitly acknowledging his pivotal role in their successful escape. Lee, still bewildered, checked the clock. Only 26 minutes had passed since their entry. He couldn't believe they had cleared the darkness and returned in less than 30 minutes. He questioned whether Section Chief Lee's aggressive smashing tactic had once again proven effective in such a short time frame. The white-haired colleague, however, clarified the situation. It was not Lee's tactic that had brought them back. The youngest member, Noru, had accomplished it all on his own. Soleum, the young recruit, then looked directly at Lee. He offered a calm, almost knowing, "Nice to meet you again." Lee, still processing the rapid turn of events, asked if the new recruit was truly responsible for their escape. He mused that Noru had been similarly impressive and enigmatic on his very first day. Lee then formally invited the new recruit to explain the clear mechanism he had employed. Soleum readily accepted the invitation to elaborate on his strategy. He began by explaining that the title of the advertisement that transported them into the darkness, "Pierrot Hates You," had been the essential clue. He then drew a crucial distinction, clarifying that a Pierrot was not, in fact, the same as a clown. He noted the common linguistic oversight where both were often referred to simply as clowns in Korean. Soleum elaborated that a clown typically wore vibrant, colorful makeup, displayed a comical smile, and performed various tricks and jokes for entertainment. Conversely, a Pierrot was a specific archetype of French clown, instantly recognizable by their monochrome makeup and a characteristically mournful, sad expression. Soleum reiterated that the very name of their current darkness had provided the critical hint. "Pierrot hates you," he repeated, emphasizing the key phrase. This led him to deduce that the Pierrot, at the very least, would not actively pursue or harm them. To validate his theory, they began searching for a portrait depicting a figure with monochrome makeup. They maintained a cautious 3-meter distance from the suspected portrait, just in case, and then used the remote hand to touch the painting. The outcome was precisely as Soleum had predicted. The Pierrot within the portrait quietly vanished, allowing for their escape. With his explanation complete, Soleum stood calmly, his demeanor unchanged. Lee, still reeling from the unexpected details, pondered the depth of Soleum's insight. He wondered if Soleum had truly deduced all of this complex information solely from the preliminary data provided. He then realized a significant consequence of Soleum's actions. Thanks to Soleum's unique understanding and quick thinking, the manual prototype for clearing this particular darkness was now complete, ahead of schedule. Lee questioned the rationality of it all. A new recruit, on his very first encounter with this specific darkness, had not only escaped in under 30 minutes, but had also established a comprehensive theory for its clearance. Lee wondered aloud if Soleum was, in fact, a monstrous entity cleverly disguised as a human. Another team member then approached, asking the team leader about what he had managed to retrieve from the darkness. Lee, still somewhat distracted by his thoughts about Soleum, asked for clarification on the question. He then vividly recalled the team leader's actions. The team leader had forcefully lunged at the Pierrot in the portrait when it attempted to flee, seizing it. Lee added, with a hint of surprise, that they could apparently crawl backward too. Lee's mind raced, a new, unsettling suspicion beginning to form. Could these two, Soleum and the section chief, be a pair of powerful monsters working in tandem? He observed them more closely, noting their slick appearance and remarkably similar facial features, further fueling his conjecture about a possible relation between them. He then subtly probed Soleum, asking if he had perhaps received a business card during his time with the team. Soleum, playing innocent, responded that, as a new recruit, he hadn't yet been issued his own business cards. Lee, however, offered a knowing smirk, remarking that Soleum was quite adept at feigning ignorance. Lee assured Soleum that he knew exactly what he was implying, hinting at a deeper connection or identity. The credit roll then began, marking the end of the chapter. Their shared ordeal within the darkness was over, but the enigma of Kim Soleum, the extraordinary new recruit, and his mysterious connection to the powerful section chief remained. The questions lingered, unresolved, about their true nature and the secrets they held. The journey through the darkness had ended, but their story was just beginning. The intricate web of their identities and relationships was far from unraveled. This was the culmination of a perilous journey, marking a significant turning point for everyone involved. The future, though uncertain, promised revelations that would forever alter their understanding of their world.